Hello, welcome to the Four Corner Podcast. I'm Brad with Matt and Shad as always. Gentlemen, how are you doing today?
I'm doing all right.
Good.
Hey Shad, can you check and see if we're live real quick? My thing's not showing it live.
Yeah, we're live.
Okay. My app must be being stupid. Okay, cool. So, this is the Four Corners Podcast. Sorry that there's technical things that I do on the side, and sometimes things are dumb. So, this is the Four Corners Podcast as always. So, gentlemen, it's starting to turn into fall where I live. How are you guys holding up?
It's chilly in the mornings. It was like 82 during the day today, so that's still warm, but it was like chilly. Actually chilly this morning. And it's been that like the last few days, like the last week or two, it's been like wear like a light jacket or like a hoodie or something in the morning times. Because it's like 50s roughly when I take the kids to school. So but I like it. I mean, I'm this summer was like I'm so over the heat dome, like everyday 100-degree weather, and it was that way for like at least 4 or 5 weeks. I started a garden. I still spent like this in the inside baseball, that $300+ on like plants and soil and plant vegetables and it did like jack shit this year because even though it's water every other day and soil and everything like that, what's a vegetable going to do in 100-degree weather? I'm over it. I'm ready for the
It's gonna wilt.
but I want an actual fall. I don't want it to be like like 2 weeks, like 7 degrees. Here's 20 degrees. Okay, I don't want and then sink right into winter. I want at least like a decent fall.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I had a garden. I had a garden last year, and that ended up with the dogs murdering a groundhog. So that was a fun day.
Oh,
that was my Father's Day present from the dogs. Was the dead groundhog.
For you,
they're little.
Planning some sort of murder.
Yeah, they were. I was a little worried because I knew the groundhog was there because you could see it going into the garden. My dogs aren't huge, and I'm kind of worried about that confrontation, and it did not put up a fight at all. Like they kind of tackled it because my dogs are about 20 pounds, and they like tackled it, and it was just done. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, groundhog did not last.
Just accepted its fate.
Yeah.
How big are they? Big.
They can get because like there was I was driving once and one went out on the highway, and if I would have hit that in my old car, I would have screwed the bottom of my car up because I don't know how much they weigh, but like they get pretty big. Have you ever seen like a beaver in person? Out of curiosity, beavers are massive in person.
Let's see.
Not massive. At least dog-sized creature.
Yeah, like if you see a beaver in person, you're like, I'm not screwing with that thing.
Beavers are
so.
But anything that could bite you. So
yeah.
So adult male groundhogs get between 16.5 to 26.5 inches in length, and weigh on average 8.5 pounds.
Yeah, so they're big and light, but yeah, if you see one, they're a little bigger than you think. So we have a fun show for this week. We are doing is the main topic dog collar matches. We have a fun little assortment of various dog collar matches. One thing I did notice before we go to our minor topics is when I was doing pull-in matches for this, dog collar matches are way overdone on indies today.
I figure that's because if you want to have a cool gimmick match to blow off a feud, then it is way, way less expensive to get 2 dog collars and some chain than it is to build a casket or build a cage for it or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey,
Possibly, I would guess also probably cheaper than buying like 100 light tubes
Or
to some sort of
God.
awful death match that has been done a million times before.
or poor is one of the matches that poor ECW arena that lost every table within a 20-foot radius of the premises.
yeah.
I don't think I've ever seen as many tables destroyed.
I mean,
Quick
I
question.
gotta be honest, the best gimmick match I ever had, it was not a dog collar match, but it was a Russian chain match, left wrist to left wrist, so,
Were you,
you
little,
know,
were you a little mad during the one that you didn't think to do the gory special, like choking him out?
no, I was good with not doing that. It didn't really fit for me.
Mm.
It didn't really fit for what I would have wanted it to do.
What were you gonna say, Matt?
If the dog collar match has been overdone in the indies, like when did that start? Did it start
Last
after
decade.
like Punk AF?
No,
Okay.
it's been overdone
It
for
was
a while.
like the last years.
Because there was
Okay.
there were two I wanted to really get, but I had that they were paywalled. I really wanted to get Slim J versus Corey Hollis from it used to be it's like the promotion that once was NWA Wildside and NWA Anarchy. It's just Anarchy Wrestling now, but there's like 6 of those. And then there was like an Eddie Kingston, Ethan Page one from like AIW in Cleveland that I had thought about doing. But I think that's why the last decade, because I think like Chad said, they're easy to do. They don't cost much. If you're, and I think it too, if you're like a worker and you want to blow something off, I think that's fairly low risk. Like you might blade, and that's the worst thing you're gonna do.
As long as the two of you are trying to take care of each other, because you could have you could have some people who are just they don't either know or they don't care to work it properly and just start whipping the hell out of you with the thing.
And then there was what was the other one? There was one that was really interesting from Mid South. It was like Kamala and like Ted DiBiase versus like JYD and Duggan, and two of them were in a dog collar match, but then the other two were like in a chain match, and it was going on simultaneously.
Okay.
That seems like a lot.
Well, I mean, if you consider the thing though, so you have your two guys that are essentially in the dog collar match, and the other two guys are hooked pretty much by the wrists. So
Yeah.
But still, well, we'll get into it.
I think there's some creativity there. I don't know how it works, but I was like, I'm not gonna go hybrid for this. That might be something in the back pocket. So we do have our mini topics. Our first one is not going to be wrestling related. That's going to be so what are we currently playing video game wise, gentlemen? Does let's have Matt start because he's been talking about one he's been playing on the Switch.
So, what I'm playing right now, because I've said 4 million times for you guys, but I don't have a lot of games. I have a limited time, like either like I'm putting my youngest to bed, or I play the Switch exclusively because like I don't have time to sit in front of like a console or have a computer and like just waste, but I can play it on the Switch because I can literally pick Switch, play it 20 minutes, and sit or late or whatever. So I can do it really quickly, and the Switch really lends itself to that. Like you can pick it up, play it, put it down, it's fine. But I'm playing. I'm playing these. I don't know if you guys heard that. I know that it's also on Steam. It's a game that came out like 2-3 years ago at this point.
Could you say it again? I didn't quite catch you.
Hades.
Oh yeah.
Heard of it? Yes.
I've played it.
Yeah. It's it's kind of like a roguelite game. Um
Roguelike. It's a
it's yeah, rogue
it's a roguelike because there is progression between runs, so it's a roguelike. Not a
yes.
roguelite. No, wait.
Yeah, the
No, no,
theme
I
oh, so,
no, wait. I did it wrong. I did it wrong. It's a roguelite, not a roguelike. There we go. Sorry, I'm
yeah,
dumb.
I get confused between the two. But
Yeah, it's late.
there is progression. The premise is that you play this Zagreus, I think is his name. You play the son of Hades, and who is trying to escape hell, the underworld, and find his mother, who, if you know Greek mythology, his mother is actually Persephone, who is one of the Olympic gods. And Hades is technically an Olympic god, but uh, he's trying to escape Hades, so he has to the underworld. So he has to, run through the underworld. And then, as he progresses, you go to I forget the dimension it's called, but it's like another like hell world, and then you reach like the Elysium Fields, and there's I think another level beyond that, but I haven't got that far. But um, there is progression in that you will die a lot. You will lose all your life. You can get what they call death defiances, which is like once you lose all your life, you can come back to life with like half health or something like that, and still keep playing.
And then you
Um,
unlock some
but
things and
you
like
also
you unlock like some people and stuff too as it goes.
you you have the opportunity to interact with other gods. Like Olympic gods aren't down in the underworld, but they can send you what's called boons, which basically amplify your weapons or give you some sort of status that can assist you in actually battling enemies. Um, you also can kind of upgrade yourself, like I mentioned, like the death defiance, which you can like prevent death. There's ways to upgrade that where you get when you kind of revive, you get more of your health back. You don't get I haven't get to the point where you get all your health back, but you get more of it. And there's different power-ups you can get where like that'll extend your life, or they'll give you some sort of something that will hasten your ability to actually defeat enemies.
And I think
Plus,
you
you
can
also kind
start
of learn the
with. I think you
patterns.
can start. I think there's some stuff where you can like start like with a buff or two or something. Like you can start a little stronger
Yes.
than you normally would.
Yeah, you kind of can build to that. You can build relationships with the other gods, and that gives you some things. Like if you give a god, there's like this special fruit that you can give to different characters as a gift. And the first time you do that to a character, to a new character, um, you can get they give you some sort of reward, which effectively acts as like equipment. And if you equip that particular piece of equipment, it gives you some sort of status. Like one, like Cerberus, the three-headed dog. If you equip that, that immediately gives you like 25 extra hit points, and you can upgrade those at least once to where it'll give you more of that special, whatever it is. It's like maybe this piece of equipment like increases your attack power by like 5%. Maybe you could upgrade that to like 10%. It's little things like that which have kind of a little bit like a RPG type of element to it. Um, and much like with rogue games, the more you play it, the more you kind of understand the strategy for certain enemies or just how to play it. There's 6 different weapons in the game that you can kind of switch to, and they each have their own. I'm playing around kind of with the different weapons, but they can be upgraded too. But there's different strategies on how you actually play the games. Like I was using the spear a lot, and that
That's what
helps
I
because you
use.
actually have a longer range, so you can kind of be a little more defensive, and that you can stay away from enemies and still attack them. Or you can use something that's basically like almost like boxing gloves, like fists, which obviously you have to get really close to melee, which some of the enemies you face that's a little tricky. It's really just a fun game. I'm actually I think I've died and been playing through it at least like 2 dozen times, but each time it's like I find it a little easier to do it. Like when I first started playing, I couldn't get through essentially like the first level without, or I would get to the boss character and die. But now it's like it's kind of rare that I get I I always get through like that first level easy without losing all my health. I get always to, like Elysium Fields until like the boss of Elysium Fields, which is like two. It's like the Minotaur and Perseus. I think it's Perseus. I don't think it's Theseus, but you face like 2 characters at once, which will little tricky because you're fighting 2 enemies at the same time. So you have to try and pick one off and not let the other one whittle away your health. But I'm not quite there. I haven't beaten them yet, so we'll see. But it's a super fun game. It's actually well voice acted. The writing is actually pretty good. I like that the interaction that you have to have with the other character. I guess you don't have to, but it actually does reward you. And you actually, it rewards you both of like giving you potentially like upgrades, or it rewards you just in the fact that you actually get more of the story. The story isn't just obvious. You have to actually interact with more people and talk to them multiple times when you see them. And as you do that, the story like slowly starts to unfold. You see there's reasons why Hades is trying to keep Zagreus into the underworld and not allow him to escape and find his mother. And it's really actually quite fascinating. It's really fun. They've done a sequel to it, which I have not played, and I don't think it's on Switch. I think it's just on Steam.
It's fairly
and I'm not even sure if
new.
it's like, yeah, I'm not even sure if it's like the full game or just like almost like a teaser, like a beta.
I don't think
I'm
it
not quite
was.
sure.
I don't think it was as
But,
well received as the first one. Honestly, it kind of came and went with pretty quick versus Hades, so I'm guessing it wasn't as good.
Hey, well, probably keep playing it to try and beat it. Other than that, I recently played the first game in the Mercenary Sagas, Saga Chronicles, which they released on. And that's a collection of what was 3 previous games, 2 of which I think were on mobile, and then the third one was on like a platform.
They were on
I think
they were on DS, 3DS. Sorry, they were on like the 3DS eShop. A lot of them were. That's what kind of where they originated from. I think I think the very first one was mobile.
Yeah, I think the first one was mobile. And these are, I believe, these were popular or are popular in Japan, but they had also a following here. The first one I played it's a fun game. It's very much in like the Final Fantasy tactics, like ogre tactics type of game where there's a storyline that progresses, and each battle kind of plays into the storyline, but you like the Final Fantasy like a tactics, like a turn-based tactics strategy RPG. You're on like a specific map, which could be a dungeon, it could be like a field, etc. And you travel around with your characters and you can attack enemies. And there's strategy involved with that. There is a learning curve, but this game was actually pretty steep because you really kind of have to build yourself up and figure out who the best characters are to attack enemies or what strategy to work with. Like maybe, you go the left route versus the right route to attack enemies, because going this way, like you get decimated by stronger enemies. So you try and pick them off over here. Like that's pretty fun. I'm gonna probably go back to play the second and third game, but kind of giving that a break while I'm playing Hades. But that's what I'm playing now, or have just played.
Shad, what are you playing?
So currently, I'm gonna look at my recently played on Steam right now. I have been still dabbling with Baldur's Gate 3. I only have one playthrough that I've actually finished the whole way through. I dip back into MechWarrior 5 now and then. I'm waiting for MechWarrior 5 Clans to come out. I've been doing a lot with Fire Pro Wrestling World, and getting deeper into that. The thing that I've been doing a lot in, just for like filling 5 minutes at a time or something like that, is playing Marvel Snap, which is a card game. You have 3 locations and you're trying to have the highest score at each location. You've got cards that'll move, like the Spider Family cards typically move between locations. You can have cards that destroy, cards that regenerate. If you destroy Wolverine that's in play, he pops back up with another 2 power on top of it. Or if you play Bucky Barnes and destroy Bucky Barnes, that turns that card into Winter Soldier. Lots of stuff like that. You don't have to pay anything for it, but you plug away at it. You can get some cards together, make some decks. It's a fun way it's engaging, but it's not taxing, if that makes sense. And then the other thing I've been in and out on a lot has been Helldivers 2, and it has been a heckin' roller coaster in terms of what's been going on with that. It started out, Helldivers 2 comes out, and it just explodes because it's cooperative. There's no PvP in it. And whenever someone asks one of the developers, like, when are you going to put PvP in it? They're like, never. We don't want that kind of game. So you're playing in a squad of 4 divers. Depending on, you're either fighting bugs or bots. Different weapons you unlock as you go. Different mission types. You have different, they're called stratagems. You can call in either support weapons or shields. You can call in space fighter attacks. You can call in attacks from they call them super destroyers because Helldivers 2 is similar to Starship Troopers the movie, because everything about it is propaganda and like super over the top, for Super Earth and for democracy and for freedom and all that sort of thing. So everything is dialed, up to 11, and yet some people still don't get that it's satire. They had all of that. It was great. And then Sony decided to come walking in and be like, you have to have a PSN account to play this. And then they had, like, they would have, in the initial, like, launch month, they would have 5,000 concurrent players at low points or something like that. It's just a crazy number. I may not have that number right, but it was really high. And then Sony comes in and does that, and it's like everybody quit. And, then Arrowhead, who...
Like the servers, people just quit playing?
People stopped playing because they weren't going to make a PSN account to give to Sony. Because the game wasn't made by Sony, it was made by Arrowhead Studios. And whenever they did, people were like, no, I'm not making another damn account for another, I've already paid for this game. I'm not making another damn account again. And so Sony backed off on it and people came back. And then the other thing they were running into is that the developers they had, like right now they're going through and undoing a bunch of the stuff they screwed up. But the developers they had were like, well, we want this to be like simulationist and like hardcore and gritty, as opposed to the way everybody was playing it of, I am a one-man army. I'm wrecking everything in front of me. This is awesome. Daka, 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 daka. That sort of stuff. And like, well, no, that's too... And they had 9 difficulty levels at the time. Here's what the developers would do. They would look at all the spreadsheets they had, and then they would test it on difficulty 4, and they'd be like, oh, we need to nerf this. And it's like, what in the hell are you all doing? And so now their CEO and their chief creative officer have gone back, and they did like these big player surveys. They're like, okay, what do you want out of this? And they got their answers back, and they went and, in not so many words, kind of bitch slapped the devs that were working on it and said, quit making shit weak. Undo this, undo this, undo... Like, they just announced today that the next patch is going to undo all of the nerfs they put on flamethrowers and then add some damage to it. Which, by the way, having a giant bug that charges at you and you dive out of the way and stand behind it with a flamethrower and cook it, while your Helldiver stands there and starts laughing maniacally, just...
Why,
A taste of freedom! Is just ridiculous fun.
I don't get devs that like nerf the crap out of everything for PvE games, because Path of Exile does that too. They're like, oh, well, you're having too much fun. We're gonna nerf this. Like, I understand like sometimes something happens that you don't get, like you don't foresee, like combo wise, so you gotta you gotta like tone stuff down. But like I've noticed when devs start going nerf happy, they never like boost anything, and then you just
Yeah.
get weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker.
And they have been losing player. That, and then Sony said, "Oh well, if Sony decided their last gas bet, it would be, well, if the PlayStation Network's not available in the country they're in, they can't buy Helldivers." And it's like, you've excluded like 100 countries in that were playing the game beforehand. So it's Sony gonna Sony again.
What happened to Sony? Like, what is it about like them moving like their console like operations to the United States made them like go off the deep end? Because they're doing like, I feel like they learned their lesson from like the PS3 era when they like got arrogant and they're making all those mistakes again. And the Helldivers thing has been really perplexing to me because like it's just there's no need for it. They're just killing a game that like otherwise doesn't need to be killed.
I don't know, if I was gonna guess that moving their console stuff to the US instituted a culture change that pushed it into the short-term profit decision mindset, and that ruins every damn thing. And that would be like, I think the thing that started with Sony and the PSN account for Helldivers and all that sort of stuff is, I think that was Sony being mad that the most popular game of the year for them was not one they developed. It's being distributed through their network, but it was not made by them.
Yeah, they have
Arrowhead's not a big studio.
they have a real issue with that because it's like if you look at like some of their censorship practices, if you're like a Japanese dev, you better not have a hint of cleavage in that game. But like, oh, if you're a Sony developed game, like you can show all the full frontal nudity you want. That's just fine. But God forbid you be a Japanese dev and like have any sort of sex appeal in it. So like those are like the weird double standards they're into. But especially considering they just had like one of the biggest flops of all time as a live service game. I don't get why they are so.
What was that? Concord?
Concordia or something like that. And like
I heard about it, but I don't know what it is.
So it's kind of like a hero shooter. It's kind of like Overwatch, except they designed all the characters to appeal to a certain, shall we say, Twitter user that people always try to appeal to and never buy anything.
Can't have anything that would tempt the male gaze, I suppose.
Well, no, it's like the character designs are just bad. Like anything going into it, like, well, the beta did bad, but like it's just the character designs are terrible. And like in a hero shooter like Overwatch, part of the appeal is selling skins and people getting attached to the looks of characters, and like all the promotional material, if there are any comments allowed, it was always people clowning on how bad the characters looked. So they pulled the plug on that after 2 weeks. So
after 2 weeks, they're in-house developed. Oh my God.
It was 11 days.
It cost like hundreds of millions of dollars to make, years to make. Didn't they also? So I don't know as much as many people, I'm sure, about this game, but didn't they drop a game or not produce like a sequel to a game, a popular franchise or something for this?
I think
I heard that.
Yeah, there was something they canceled in order to make this, and I can't remember what it was. I read it somewhere, and then for the life of me, I can't remember what it was.
Well, I know they're trying to do like a Last of Us live service too, and like they brought some specialists in, like, no, this ain't gonna work. So they canned that, but it wasn't for this, and I don't remember what it was. Oh well. But yeah, it was a massive failure. Like Suicide Squad was.
Okay, I gotta look.
Okay. So I'll just go into mine while Shad looks that up. So I played Super Robot Wars 30, which if you don't know what that is, that's like a turn-based strategy game, and it's kind of like a big anime crossover. So you get like Mazinger Z, like Gundams, anything mech related. They like, I think one game had the little fighter plane from Cowboy Bebop. And like I think one game like Battleship Yamato was like your capital ship that you like worked from, and like the SDF-1 was in it. Like I think Voltron and Gigantor have been in games.
I was gonna ask, is it Gigantor?
No, it's the
Gigantor.
OG Gigantor hasn't been in it, but like the new Adventures of Gigantor, the 28, has been in one. I think Big O's been in a couple of them. So it's been going since like the 90s. There's a lot of games. And then the other one I've been playing and I've been bitching about it is Starfield. So
That's
went
really amazing.
I went into they have a lot of the games on the Switch if you import, but so I decided to try Starfield. I went in knowing it was going to be mid, but oh boy, there's a lot to talk about in that game, and I'm not even like super far into it. Like you're like within the first 5 minutes, they pull the which devs learned. Shadow probably know like what, like 5 or 6 years ago they did the you have to walk behind the NPC that's just yapping forever, but they walk at like a speed that you can't quite match.
It's
naturally.
between your run and walk speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that goes on
escort missions like that.
That goes on for like 5 minutes. I'm like, didn't we get past this last generation? And then like, so I'm a couple hours in, like, and it's got main character syndrome real bad. Like you'll just walk up to someone and they'll just like spill their guts to you, or be like, hey, you should join our security force. And I'm like, I like this band of mercenaries. Like I literally just got off a ship and I hadn't done anything. And they're like, oh, you should join this, like, mercenary outfit. I'm like, I haven't fucking done anything, guys. Because, you know, like, because it's a Bethesda game. Like, when you played Skyrim, like, Skyrim had its issues. Or even, like, Fallout 4. Fallout 4 sucks, honestly. But, like, it always made sense when a faction recruited you. And it was getting pretty bad in, like, Fallout 4, where, like, you joined everything. But this is a game, like, I'm a couple hours in. I really haven't left the main town, and I'm already joined to like 3 different groups, and I think I have like 4 or 5 like sources of like bounties and like mini side quests. Like it's everything wrong with like modern. It's like it's almost an MMO like, but it's also like the way the game treats you even early on. Like I don't think I've ever played a game that's so afraid of you doing something or having agency because you might do the wrong thing. I've never played a game so like afraid of you doing that. And it also kind of is annoying because like, so the first town, maybe it gets better, but like most of the NPCs just say citizen, so you know you should talk to someone if they have a name.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, Brad. You were going on this, and I just had that. I was just looking at the game Concord. They canceled it, like you said, after 11 days. They're refunding everybody who bought it.
Oh, that didn't cost them much. They only sold 25,000 copies, and
it cost them estimates between $100 and $200 million to develop it.
Yeah.
Holy.
The only way you're offering like the reason you are offering like a refund is because you're gonna write off as much as possible, if not all of that, in like taxes as a loss, just business loss. You're just gonna like try and write that off on taxes. So that's insane. Imagine, give me $100 million, like, and I can produce. I'll spend 5 years, I'll toil away producing a game for you, and then if it sucks, oh well, guys, sorry. Then I take my $100 million to go home.
Well, we were kind of talking about this. We were kind of talking about this earlier today. Like, I don't know how sustainable it is to have like these big IPs like Elder Scrolls and having like a decade plus go between like versions. Like, you can't sustain the industry with that, and it's a lot of the like Dragon Age is coming out this year, and they haven't had a game in 11 years.
I don't know why. Well, actually, I know exactly why. Everybody wants it to be a live service game now. Because apparently we can't be having single player games because single player games you just buy it once and you're done. And how are we going to keep making money off that? It's like, piss off, God. Yeah, the shareholder mindset seems to be dead set on ruining as much as it can, and I'm getting more and more jaded on it.
Well, the problem there is like they're making the
I'm getting it.
MMO mistake again because what they found out with MMOs in the aughts is, yeah, WoW's super popular, but there's only so many players with so much time on their hands. So like, yeah,
Yeah,
you
and
might make a great MMO, but the market can support like 3 of them. And at this point, like with MMOs, it's like, well, if you're not WoW, old school RuneScape, or Final Fantasy 14, you're gonna have a really hard uphill battle. And I think the live service thing is having that issue. It's like if you're not Destiny 2 or like, you know, Apex Legends or what's the other one? Fortnite, like you have an uphill battle on your hands.
it's just, uh, it's like, for God's sake, quit making the biggest, most popular game of the year was Baldur's Gate 3. The multiplayer is completely optional for that. The everything about it is, you can play it by yourself without an internet connection. You could just fire it up and play it, provided your machine's up to it.
And it sounds like
You
with Helldivers too, like that there's not like the grind of like a live service game. Like it is a live service game, but it's like if I miss 3 months, like I didn't miss anything. Like I can just hop back in. I don't have to grind all these things I missed for 3 months. Like I didn't miss like, I'm not gonna.
you've missed some novelty stuff, but the thing is, you don't like if you're playing Helldivers and all you have is the basic assault rifle. It's not like you're horrifically lagging behind. Most of the time, the weapons are not that they're not that far apart. And so, I mean, there have been some cases where apparently they felt like it was. They introduced this this weapon into the game that was called the Eruptor, and it was this big, chunky bolt action rifle that fired it was like a little rocket propelled grenade out of a bolt action rifle, right? Except it was slow, it had drop off, all that, but it had a shrapnel burst around it. So if you didn't fire it properly, like you didn't lift the gun far enough up before you shot it and it hit the ground in front of you, it would like kill you and everybody around it. And they're like, oh man, no, that shrapnel, that's too good, we can't have that. And they took the effect off. And it's like, why? Like, even if that wasn't intended, that's a heck of a trade-off because now you have to be super careful with it.
Well, I don't get
It's
what
like,
what I don't get about that though is if stuff's overpowered, just put more bugs in.
just all you got to do is just make if there is stuff, if something seems to be used too much, if there's a primary weapon or a support weapon or something and it seems like it's being used too much, make other stuff better to step up to it. Don't drag it down.
Yeah.
Lift other stuff up to it. And if it's like, well, even at the higher difficulties, it's not hard enough, just turn the dial up.
Especially for
Just
a
do
PvE
that.
game, like you just want to go in with a bunch of guys and tear some stuff up. Like,
Yeah, just want to rip it up, man.
yeah,
But and they're trying to fix that. But I don't know. I wish this idea of the live service thing would go away because that does not need to be the primary way we do game stuff.
I think
It's
it has its place. Like, I get like the couple of good ones. Like I played the Division 2, and that's a fun live service game. Like I get it does like. There's a person that works for, and I think that is more than fine. It's that everyone trying to have their live service game that's the problem.
well,
And I like my
I'm just
Warframe too, so. because you know.
In any
Stations
event,
is-
that's what I think. That's what we're playing.
Yeah. So then our next main topic is because it kind of goes into like I felt the dog collar match is a little underappreciated when I was watching these. Like, so what do we think is like an underappreciated gimmick match? Maybe
Well, Chad may
underused.
have.
I'm
Uh,
looking because I want a list of gimmick matches that I may not have, that I may have forgotten.
And no, it will not be. It will not be a Judy Bagwell on a pole match. Like pole matches are dumb. At least like a coal miner's glove match. Like at least there's something worth getting on there because you can pummel someone with it.
So in my head, there are the way that I think of matches are in terms of gimmicks are: is it environment, is it object based, or is it win based? Environment, no DQ, false count anywhere, bunkhouse brawl, anarchy in the arena, like all that stuff. Okay, it's like out into the environment around you. Empty arena, sure. Object based, is it around a steel chain or dog collar? Is it around a coal miner's glove? Is it
Brass knuckles, blah blah blah.
brass knuckles? Is it the tables, ladders, and chairs match? Like all that sort of stuff. It's based around having this one thing added into it. And then the last one is outcome based.
So that'd be like
Also environmentally based goes with steel cage goes into that too.
So it would outcome based be like first blood, I quit, submission.
First blood, I quit, submission, ladder match, Iron Man. Trying to make sure I'm not, and you have variations from there. The because
with like a they've done them in the past. I think it's more of a your neck of the woods thing, but like a pile driver match.
I mean,
that would
I would say that's an outcome based because it's whoever hits that. It's like the John Studd Andre the Giant body slam match. That's outcome based. What's the outcome? Who gets the body slam first? The elimination chamber, I would say, is environmentally based. It's all based around being in there. So that's where War Games is the same kind of thing. It's environment based and that sort of stuff. So that's the way I think about these. Is those are the categories I put them in. As for underappreciated, the one I think I go with for underappreciated is because we just don't see it a whole lot currently. Is lumberjack matches.
Oh, see, I was gonna throw that one out there.
I'm sorry.
I think a well done lumberjack match is like is something I'm dying for because we were watching. What was that? Oh, that was Portland, where they like there weren't shenanigans. They would just push them back in the ring like as soon as they got out. I kind of like.
What were you gonna say, Matt?
That's I agree with that. I agree because I think that if it's done well, or as I think originally intended, it's fine. But I think a lot of times it's like it's not really done well. It's almost like a throwaway type of thing.
And too much shenanigans on the outside, I think, to take away from the actual match.
There can be, but I don't mind the shenanigans when it's like it really is as it's supposed to be, where you're trying to keep the guys in the ring. And if one of the guys gets out, they immediately throw them in. I'm okay with some shenanigans where it's like the face, gets thrown out to maybe like the heel side. The heels like, beat him up a little bit, then throw him back in. I think unfortunately what it's become, it's like, like the heel will throw the face out into like the heel section.
And
then it's like 5. Yeah, but then it's like 5 minutes of them beating on him outside, then throw him back in. And it's like, now it's become too much.
Then the lumberjacks get into it with each other, then someone interferes. Yeah, that's...
Yeah, but I do like it. I'm okay with a little bit of like that, because I mean, that is a dynamic, but I do like the attitude or way it's supposed to be, where it's like, you're throwing me, if I get thrown out, it's like they immediately like they can grab you forcefully. They don't have to be like gently, just grab them and then but tossing them back in. Like I think that's as it was intended to be. Like I think that's good. That's more like unfortunately at this point that's almost like a subversion of the trope
Yeah.
because you haven't seen that for so long.
Actually, my favorite variation Memphis did of it, and I've talked about it before, and I wish someone would do it. I wish AEW would do it. So the Memphis version that they would do sometimes is a lumberjack strap match. So the
Yes,
lumberjacks would have
yes.
straps, and that was awesome because then you would just get the crap beat out of you, and you'd be
I
crawling back in just because like they were going to town on you. I think that's a great variation of the match.
yeah. It's all they're almost like belts, just like it's just like
Cor-
slapping them together. Yeah, and they just
so
start wailing on you if you got out.
so
Start
Cornette,
pounding on you. I've seen a match like that.
So there's Cornette talked about that in an episode before he lost his mind once about the concept of the strap. And so he said a good strap it needs to be wide because it doesn't hurt very bad, but it makes a great thunk to it. And if you do like a regular belt, like it doesn't make a sound, but it hurts like a bitch because it's small. But so he did this whole like 5 minute thing on like what you want out of a strap.
I mean, that's the thing about Cornette. Like I've heard him give shoots and all before where he's actually like talking. And it's a shame because he actually has like a ton of actual essentially like institutional knowledge about everything. He's just insane now. Or
Yeah.
he's playing into a gimmick,
Yeah.
but he's playing into the gimmick, but I feel like the gimmick has blurred the lines of reality.
I did appreciate Brian last just destroying Dave Shearer for like 3 days straight on Twitter though, and it led to my new favorite meme that I wish would catch on more which is Chad Dave Meltzer, where that guy drew that thing and it's like Dave Shearer like Mr. Meltzer, read my newsletter, and it's just like buff
I have a
Meltzer
newsletter
with like
too.
a woman. He's like, yeah, work hard and blah blah blah, but like, I
Yeah.
but I don't remember what Shearer did, but like Brian Last just ran him through. It's like, don't tell me you're not Meltzer's friend. Like you did a newsletter and he was just going to town on him, which he deserved because I don't like Shearer. But yeah, Cornette also, the other reason I wish Cornette wasn't insane is because like when Cornette talks about stuff, he's not lying or misremembering because he like meticulously wrote everything down, so you usually know when he's talking about shows he did that he's sitting there reading a piece of paper that he wrote down like
Yeah,
4
he's got
days ago.
notes
Yeah,
on hand for it. Um,
like they did an OVW deep dive and he had like his like script instructions to like the trainees, like so he'd talk about this match like, yeah, so they're supposed to do this and this, and it's like a 12-hour like omnibus, but it's awesome because like the amount of stuff he has like in writing is just massive.
so the thing that I wish Cornette had not lost his mind, because I think the guy would have been utterly invaluable as basically a producer and coach. The guy that could say, all right, for this segment, we're doing these things, hit these points, that's really going to make it pop, right? As opposed to booking Cowabunga the Ninja Turtle or whatever. I'm saying that if you let him focus on the smaller stuff, he can help guys really land the thing, as opposed to having him book the whole promotion and stuff.
He's not
But
his problem as a booker is I don't think he's terribly creative. He really makes a lot of like he undercuts a lot. I think OVW he booked pretty well, but like he has a lot of issues as a booker. Like I agree, like he understands like when he does like honest critique though, and he gets into like production stuff is really where you see his value because he understands stuff like when he would do like Raw and stuff is like, well, this sucks because you're making the fans do this and that, and like you're losing their interest, and this was too long. Like I think that's where he's invaluable, like with that stuff. But like asking him to like book something compelling, like he's too out of touch in that aspect.
so yeah. And as for the lumberjack things, I think the thing I would really like to see for that is just the idea that it is supposed to be like they announce, that have the announcers do it, whatever. The idea is, no, you're just supposed to throw the guy back in the ring. But you have a heel who grabs the guy to throw him back in the ring, and when the ref's not looking, he just pop, hits him real good, and then throws him back in, like he tries to hide it or something. I'm sorry, I had that one thought I had to get out of my head before it got entirely away from me. No, I also realized I still had my chain from my chain match here, so I get the gimmick out for the show tonight.
I was just thinking about when we did Bluegrass Brawl and how good the Tracy Smothers Dirty White Boy chain match was.
Mm-hmm.
And like the clever thing they did were like, I'll just say the chain match. I think that one's underrated, but like where Dirty White Boy kind of had him by like the neck and he was going around, and Smothers was tapping the turnbuckle each time the White Boy did, and he kind of like dove over him and dove on the last one to win. I thought that was a cool ending, but I like the chain match. It has a good history. I like in Smoky Mountain when Ron Wright pulls the his personal chain that he did with Whitey Caldwell out of a Walmart bag to present to the Dirty White Boy, and when they're in Central Park training, and he's just running down the, he's like breaking beer bottles because Tracy Smothers is a drunk, and breaking a melon because he has a big melon head, and I think he had like a bag of flour because he was like a pasty white boy or something, but the giant ass like 50 cal he had. Because he's like, ooh, we have muggers. And he pulls that big ass gun out. Yeah. And it was obvious they were in someone's like backyard in Kentucky, not Central Park.
When I did the chain match that I did, we actually I made sure we kind of did something like that spot you mentioned, because I took the chain and wrapped it up and like hooked it around the other guy's neck and like put it up. I'm carrying it, like dragging him behind me over my shoulder. And so I'm dragging, and I would hit a turnbuckle pad, and then he'd hit it behind me. But he's struggling the whole way. So I get to the second one, I hit it, and he hits it behind me, and the crowd's getting more and more fired up. And we get to the third one, and we hit it at the same time, and I see his hand is on it, and I look at him like, you little son of a... And then we lost the whole thing, because my gimmick, I just lost it, turned around, and we just started wailing on him. Like, no, you are not going to piggyback off me. You are not going to do that. Okay, sorry. I'm really good at killing the flow tonight. Sorry about that, guys.
No, you're fine. Let's see. So chain match, I think, is a good one. Matt, do you have any for the?
I have like a personal favorite. I guess because like you in your youth, you kind of get attached to things that you maybe like you first saw when you got into a hobby or something like that. We mentioned lumberjacks, but it's like, I guess there's two things. One, like Falls Count Anywhere, I like, but that's because when I first got into wrestling, I mentioned this before. It was like the summer of '92. I was a small child, but I saw Sting versus Cactus Jack, which I believe was at Beach Blast '92, I think, and it was the Falls Count Anywhere match, and it was like, to me, it was like wild and crazy because I mean, it just got into wrestling, but it's like so different than anything even like the limited amount of wrestling I had seen, but it was so different than that. It's like two guys brawling, and then it wound up. I think it was like Sting and Cactus and like some farmhouse stalls. And then all of a sudden,
No, that was Van Hammer that they ended up in the farmhouse stalls, because remember Abby chucked Missy Abby. Unbeknownst to Missy Hyatt, Abby chucked her in a trough, and Shad had said that in Foley's book that Dusty came to them before. It's like, I don't care what happens, but I want the girl in the water.
He said, I didn't say this out loud, but I want the girl to end up in the water, Daddy.
She got to go in the wilderness.
Remember when we did the Dangerous Alliance thing, but like Abby and Cactus were like the best part of some of those bad shows. Remember when they did like that dumb tag tournament and Abby came out like he was all happy and he just
Starcade?
Yeah.
It's a Starcade, like Lethal Lottery one.
Yeah, Lethal Lottery.
He just beats the shit out of Colonel Buddy Park.
No, but remember he came out and he beat Sting too, and he looked all happy like, yeah, they just start smacking him, but oh man, he beat the tar out of Buddy Lee Parker.
Yeah.
Remember, because it
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, it was like, it was like, kind of like Matt will notice from like Opie and Anthony, like he did it so long that it stopped being funny, but then he did it long enough that it became funny again.
Came right back around.
Yeah.
Yeah. It made a full circle. It's back.
Yeah.
This is like, it's not funny. Then, oh, no, it's funny.
Yeah.
Um, but I saw like Falls County were back like when I first started, and I love such a fun concept. But then, especially by like the Attitude Era, it was just the concept was like, oh, it's Falls County Era match, and then it just wound up being like
A hardcore match.
they're in the ring for like, yeah, well, they're yes, but they're in the ring for like 30 seconds, and then next thing you know, they're brawling through the crowds, and you just see camera angles of them backstage somewhere.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, in like mid 90s WCW, when we saw like Kevin Sullivan versus, Voldemort in like brawling backstage, like that was fun. But it just became kind of like just a mess, and it kind of still is like that way a bit. So
And it lost. I think it lost its
kind of
luster
lost its charm.
It lost its luster in the Attitude Era because like the main event style, they would just brawl in the crowd and be out of the ring for like forever, and there was like no such thing as like a count out.
And if you want to see anything, it's like, oh, I guess I'll just stare off the space in the Titantron and see what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not really great either. But the other match type that I kind of enjoy, is like a personal thing, is I love the traditional Survivor Series, like elimination tag. And obviously they became a thing where it's like, now it's like, oh, it's a Survivor Series match, and it's like, not necessarily. Like, I like the elimination tag. I think it works best if you have at least like an 8-person tag, like 4-on-4. Or you can even do like more on that, but because I don't think like 2 versus 2 or 3 versus 2 or 3 versus 3 like works. I think 4 versus 4 or 5 versus 5 or something works better. But I kind of like that, and I don't think it needs to be like a gimmick match like War Games or something. You can just have like that. But now I don't think because of like the association with WWE, I don't think you'd see that. Maybe on the indies. I've seen it actually on the indies once or twice, but you wouldn't really see that. It's like a WWE match. But I kind of like the concept. I think like you wouldn't do it all the time, but maybe like every so often you have like, two teams or 2 groups of people who can associate with each other because they're feuding with the other people. It could work. Like 2 tag teams could like form up with other 2 tag teams, and like you have like a match, and you can easily kill like 20-30 minutes of TV time doing a match like that. It'd be fun, but
you see it a lot on
know.
New Japan house shows. They do like 8 and 10 eliminations a lot. It's pretty common over there. That's kind of where it originated. I have another one that's great because I don't think either major company's done one in a while. But like a good old fashioned like hair versus hair match, or like a mask versus title, or a mask versus hair match. Like I think those are always fun. You get some mileage out of someone losing their hair. And I think the stakes are good for that. That's like a really easy. It's really easy to put that's like makes it really tangible for people. And then you get like the whole to do, where the guy's got to stand there and get his head shaved, or if it's like lucha, you have to have the big unveiling of like, oh, who's the man behind the mask, that sort of stuff.
Lucha I like because they're like, they get real manly. I'm not talking about like unmasking, but I mean, it's hair versus hair. You'll see the guys like rip the scissors or the razor out of the person's hand. They'll just start doing it themselves. It's really like a badass image sometimes. I think actually, I don't know of like a really good one that they've had in kind of North America for a while outside of like Lucha. I know that I haven't seen it. I think I actually have it on DVD. But the match from Stardom, I think in like 2022, like Julia versus Tam Nakano, where Julia got her head shaved, she lost and had her head shaved. That allegedly was like a really good match, like a 4 or 5-star match. But I haven't seen it yet. It's one of the endless amount of matches that I have on tape or DVD, and I just haven't had a chance to watch through. But I don't know if I can't think of like at least like WWE. I don't think AEW's ever done like a hair versus hair.
I feel like someone, it might have been we watched it on the show. I feel like someone had like a hair versus hair match recently. I know the last one I can think of in WWE off the top of my head. I don't even remember the match, but like I know Angle lost his hair.
More recent than that was the proxy war McMahon v. Trump with
Oh yeah.
Bobby Lashley and
Oh yeah.
what's his face?
Didn't Meltzer say like that they have been like the most profitable like
Yeah,
Mania,
because
or
they had
like some
they
sort of
had
insane buy rate?
they had Mayweather on that, so it broke like 1,000,000 buys or something. It's like the most bought
Well,
event they ever had.
that I think was also, it is obviously years before he entered politics, but I think that was also like
That was like the height of The
probably like
Apprentice.
prime, yeah, like the prime of The Apprentice, like how big that show was at the time. Yeah.
I know
So yeah,
Austin talked
I think that
about.
went to like record buy rate numbers.
I know Austin talked about working with Trump because his handler's like, he's not doing this, he's not doing that, and then Austin just kind of bypassed them and was like, "Hey, can I give you a stunner?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'll do it." Which is funny. There was it's slightly off topic, but who was that? They worked with Tiger Woods, and they said that his handlers are like, "Don't cuss around him, don't do that," and he says Tiger Woods shows up. He's like, "Okay, fuckers, let's go." And he's like, "What the hell?" And then they were like, they're doing all this hoity-toity stuff. And they're like, "Well, it's lunchtime. Tiger, what do you want?" He's like, "Oh, I'll just take Taco Bell." He's like, "I saw a Taco Bell like 2 blocks back. I'll take that." And it's just funny, like some of like how protective handlers can be, and then like people themselves are just like, whatever.
Yeah. So one of the things that bugs me about gimmick matches a lot is the fact that there have been so many that it feels like they've been twisted into such a way that I don't like the win conditions that are put on. The whole idea behind a cage match is you can't get away from each other and people can't get in. Then why do we have the escape stipulation?
That's more of a.
I hate the escape stipulation. I also hate the fact that in WWE it's like you have a cage match and then it's like, well, how are they getting in to screw with this? When it's the entire damn point of the match. I am also not a big fan of the chain match. I would rather a chain match be one where you guys are just beating the hell out of each other with it than having the different, even though I did it myself, than having the different win stipulation of like tapping the corners. It's like, no, give me this, we're beating the hell out of each other and then this has been introduced into it thing. Don't give me this. It's like you had a chair match, and it's like in order to win, you have to sit on 4 chairs at the same time. It's like, no, don't do that.
I kind of like the four corners idea for it though, because the idea is that you have to find a way to incapacitate your opponent to the point that you can do that without getting interrupted or them making contact with you. And so the idea is like you either have to tie them up to such a degree they can't make contact with you or just straight up knock them out. So like I think in that case with the chain match it actually promotes more violence.
I don't know. It seems, it's a phrase I'm looking for. It seems unnecessary. Yeah, I guess. Because the idea is you can't get too far away from each other. You've got this match going so that you can't separate each other too much. You can't run from each other, kind of thing, and you've got a weapon in play. But
so my problem with like a lot of gimmicks is, and I'm gonna throw the elimination chamber under the bus because I don't like the elimination chamber, but my personal philosophy to gimmick matches is, and I've espoused it on this show repeatedly ad nauseum, is a good wrestling gimmick match. You can describe the stipulations in a sentence. And that's where a lot of gimmick matches go wrong, like the Elimination Chamber. There's too much going on. Or there's like those TNA stipulations where it's like a paragraph to describe the rules.
Like a reverse battle royal King of the Hill match or some shit.
Yeah, because like a ladder match, it's like, you need the ladder to get to the thing that you need to pull off. That you need the ladder to get to the thing. Cage match. Beat
Yeah.
each other up and get out or pin them. Um, Royal Rumble. Last until the end. War Games. Get everyone out there and then get someone beat.
Look, I like the Casino Battle Royal too. People keep coming out until somebody gets a pinfall or submission, and that's how it works.
Yeah.
You just keep introducing people until somebody wins, and then
How
it's
many
like, well,
people? Let's explore that. How many people in theory would come out? Like 100? We
I
haven't
guess
seen
it
that.
would
I
cap.
mean,
It would
just
cap it where.
exploring.
Well, I mean, like the clusterfuck usually
But
has
what if it
like,
doesn't?
I think the clusterfuck usually
What?
has like 60-some people come out.
I think. Look, I don't know that he would ever do it, but I think like because I do like the Casino Battle Royal, the concept. They're doing one this week for Dynamite for tag teams. Although I kind of feel it's like
Well,
it's
okay,
September.
wait.
It's September. Like let's maybe not do any more of those this year. Like give it a break. We don't want to. We don't
It's been a
burn
little
out. the
overdone
concept,
this
but-
year. It's been a little
We're
overdone this year.
misspeaking, by the way. Those are Casino Gauntlet matches, not Casino Battle Royal.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
Oh yeah.
I'm just as guilty.
For Casino Gauntlets, like I would love just once, maybe Tony Khan books it where it's like maybe have like he'd never do it, but like maybe like let's have 30 people. Let's literally have a 2-hour Dynamite where it's just you start off with the Gauntlet and it's just an hour in, it's still going on and people are just losing their minds. It's like what's happening? There's been like 30 guys. Like just keep doing
And
it.
you
But,
could have-
well, that's me personally. That's why I'm not a billionaire booker of a company.
I mean, to have that as a one-off would be pretty fun. And then you have that multi-man sequence where one guy takes out somebody, and then somebody else takes that guy out, and somebody else takes that guy out, and somebody else takes that guy. Except it doesn't have to be restricted to teams, and it doesn't have to be, oh, now you do a high-fly thing, now you do a different high-fly thing. It could be whatever. It just off the top of my head, if it was, Mox does a Death Rider, and then here comes Wardlow, and he does a power bomb, and then here comes Hangman, and he does a buckshot, and then here comes Dante Martin, and he does his moonsault thing, and then you've got Hologram, and he does like the 540 spinning reverse Frushinator, and then you have, it wouldn't have to be teams. You could have just an entertaining sequence like that. That would be fun to see once.
Yeah. There's some gimmicks I think that would be funny like once, like a blindfold battle royal or like a reverse battle royal, like as a one-offs as like a filler thing. I think would be funny, but so do we want to hit our main topic of the evening? So main topic of the evening is dog collar matches. So we have selected 4 juicy little dog collar matches for you tonight. So the first one is, I'm going to list them off first. So it's Junkyard Dog versus Butch Reed from 1983. Roddy Piper versus Greg Valentine from Starrcade 1983. The Pitbulls versus Raven and Stevie Richards from ECW in 1995. I think it was it Gangsters in Paradise? Was that the name of the show? I don't. Okay, then.
I think it was actually.
Yeah,
I think it was. I had to look it up, but I think it actually was.
I was pissed off that was a WWE copy, and then we got like some butchered music at the end. But and then obviously we're gonna end with I think what is I would consider a modern classic, which I hadn't watched since around the time it happened. But FTR versus Briscos from Final Battle 2022. So let's go. We're gonna go sequentially here. So we're gonna start with Junkyard Dog and Butch Reed, which I think was kind of the weakest of the matches. I don't think it was bad. It was just kind of there. It was kind of like perfectly acceptable wrestling for me.
I think it was fine. But this was by far the weakest of the matches.
Yeah. What I did like though is there's a spot where Junkyard Dog goes to headbutt Butch Reed and he punches him he blocks the headbutt with the chain, which I thought was really clever.
That was clever. That was how Reed took over because the beginning of the match was basically JYD just like pummeling him. And it wasn't particularly, I mean, JYD was limited, but it wasn't particularly fascinating offense by JYD. It was basically just like a lot of punches, like wrapping the chain around his fist and like punching him.
I think he was a
It's
little
kind of
past his
slow, kind
prime
of
at
plodding.
this. I think he was. I mean, he was never a great
He's
worker,
past his
but
prime at 83.
I think
Like,
he's a
that's
little. I think.
troubling because
I think his. I think he was. I think he was kind of falling off because he had some love for the booger sugar, as they call it.
Do you want to build a snowman?
Yeah.
there was a cool thing that I actually wrote down in my notes that I liked at the beginning of the match because I don't know what the backstory was for this. This was in Mid-South, wasn't it?
So I don't know because it was from the Sam Houston Coliseum. So there's this weird thing where it could have been Mid-South, but then Houston, which was Paul Bosch, used Mid-South talent. So you'll see like a Mid-South match. I think this was from, based on what it was, I think it was from that NWA On Demand service, but I think it could have been like a Houston match. So it could have been like Mid-South, but kind of out of continuity because like Houston always used, like Houston, like I think after Mid-South, like Houston has like WWE talent come in. So it's like, it's a really weird
Okay.
territory where they use other people's talent.
But JYD did something that I thought was actually pretty cool. I don't know the backstory. I don't know if obviously they must have been feuding because why you wouldn't just randomly have like two guys in a dog collar match. This is like obviously a blow off to a feud or further down the feud that they need some sort of violent stip match to get into it. But like JYD came in, he already had like the collar around his neck, and he comes in with the chain, and he's like he starts a little bit, he jaw jacks a little bit with Butch Reed, and then he takes the chain and he like throws it at like not like at his face, but like down at the feet of Butch Reed, like here like coward, like put on the dog collar match, and Butch Reed like begs off, and he's like, you know, he's like talking back too. But it was like I thought it was like a subtle but interesting visual where like JYD is like, I'm ready for this match, like I'm gonna fight you, like I already have it on, I'm ready, like put it on, like throws it down at him. It's like a little subtle thing that probably a lot of people didn't catch or didn't think anything about it, but I actually thought that was actually pretty cool because it's like he's committed to the fight, committed to the match. And initially, at least, like Butch Reed was like really kind of begging off, like he kind of conveyed that he didn't want to be in this match, he didn't want to do it. He did it, obviously, because it's the match, but he put it on, like he got his ass handed to him initially until he did that spot, like you said, where JYD goes for the headbutt, and meanwhile, Butch Reed is like wrapped the chain around his, and he like raises up, and it was like, it was kind of like, here's a whatever spot, because like in reality, I mean, Chad, you were a worker, like you could tell, like in reality, it's like, it was a light. It's like, like I mean, there wasn't much impact. He wasn't literally like, it wasn't like the last match we saw where it's like, dude's just like, I'm gonna wrap it, I'm gonna punch you in the effing face with my chain red fist. It wasn't like that, but it allowed Butch Reed to take over, and Butch Reed did a couple things on offense which I thought was fun. I mean, it wasn't anything like we saw later in the more innovative use of like the dog collar and the chain, etc., like that, but he did something I thought was really cool. Like he wrapped the chain around his like his arm, his elbow, and did a couple like big elbow drops onto JYD. And JYD's selling wasn't great. He would just mostly just like lay on the mat and like flop around. But it was still kind of fun. He did move around a bit when like Butch Reed took a couple times, cut like the dog collar and like whipped him with it. Like that because maybe it actually really hurt. Probably did. But I mean, it was I thought it was fine. It wasn't
It was
obviously
Butch
as
Reed
good
was,
as we saw later.
Butch Reed was carrying it. Like
The thing that frustrated me about this match, because I'm watching it, and the last match we talk about is like I had just recently watched it again because I was well, we'll get into it when I get there, but watching this, especially compared to the others that we watched, I'm looking at this and I'm just like, man, I don't know. This one, it to me, almost seemed like you just didn't even need the chain to be part of it. Like, and maybe this is the separation between old school and new school and stuff, but it's the, like, to me, it seemed kind of lazy. It's like, oh, now I do this spot. Now we're both gonna, okay, now let's do the next spot. Now, and like, I know full well that when you have one of these going, you do it, and then you want to give it enough time for the sell to happen and for the impact of it to kind of sink in with the crowd and then go to the next thing. But I don't know, man. To me, this seemed kind of plodding, and it was frustrating. It was really frustrating for me, and I don't know. I wish
it's pre-85, which we've talked about. Like,
yeah,
and I've talked about with you. That's kind of like the birth of like modern wrestling.
but watching this, even watching this compared to like Piper Valentine, is just
Yeah, but
like a world of difference.
Speaking of nose candy, though, I think Piper did a whole like mountain of it before he went out for that one because he was. Because we can just jump into that one because it's a good segue. But
Sure.
so so that was from like November. These are actually pretty close together time wise. So this is Piper and Greg Valentine from Starrcade '83, which is a I would say really famous match. I don't know how famous it is anymore, but like back in like the '90s and stuff, like this was like I would say a notable match.
Everybody talked about this as the chain match. I'm sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I think you're right, Chad. Like, well, to talk to both of you, like now, this is now a 41-year-old match, so I guess you could say like, oh well, it's kind of like a modern day commentary on the state of pro wrestling. Like, there are plenty of people who just love the WWE product who like. You mention this match, they'd be like, "What?" Like they wouldn't have any idea or appreciation for it. It's like they wouldn't care about a dog collar match unless it involved Roman Reigns and the Bloodline. But
has WWE ever
this
like
was
really done a dog collar match?
I remember seeing one on Raw that was the British Bulldog Invader.
Oh, I did see that for this.
But it wasn't like
it can't have been anything close.
No, it's
to
not.
It was just a random match on Raw.
It's not their I don't. I'm not. I'm trying to say this without sounding.
We don't do blood and guts.
I was gonna. Well, they did for a while. I was gonna say it's not really their style. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just don't think it fits with like how they do wrestling.
For a dog collar match to happen, you need to be a little bit of like an outlaw.
I wonder if Cena ever did one. I feel like Cena maybe did one.
Well, he did that strap match, right?
I don't know. I mean, Cena was like
that strap match.
Cena was like an NWA guy. I could see him wanting to do one. I'll have to look.
I think.
So this has a lot of blood in it because I think Piper got his ear busted hard way in there.
Something right over on the side busted open, yeah.
But I think he asked for that the way they were doing it.
I mean, Valentine's bleeding. You figure Piper's going to start too. The thing that makes the difference for me in this match is the fact that they don't ever really stop. Like, it stays rather dynamic through the whole thing. It is the idea of like, we hate each other and we are going to use this chain to hurt each other. And they keep that thought persists through the whole thing. It is
it's the most vicious of the 4 matches, I think.
It was
FTR and Briscos tried, but I think they came up just a little short.
It was that one was bloodier, but this one I probably would say is more vicious just because like the strikes, the thing that really struck me is like the strikes look like almost legit. Like and these are two guys who like masters of the craft. Like Valentine is underrated, and this was probably like more in his prime. And Piper is obviously like he became a star, but Piper, because we've seen some of his Portland stuff, we see that Piper is underrated too. Like Piper was actually a really good worker, and he could do some of this where it's like it blurred the line. To me, this almost blurred the lines. Not in a way that some of the stuff you've seen where it's like this. I don't. Is this real? Did they go into bis for themselves? But the strikes to me look so crisp and snug, and maybe a little bit stiff. Where they look in the emotion that got conveyed to me in this match. It's like these two dudes just hate each other and they're laying into each other, and it seemed like more real. And to me, like I personally love this is from Starcade, right? Like I
Yeah.
personally love the NWA. One of the reasons I love the NWA is that it had more of like that gritty, like real feeling to it, where it did to me do better job of blurring the lines. Where it's like, I mean, obviously this is still back in the day where it was kayfabe, but even if you were smart into it, everything, and now obviously we all are, but you could look at this and be like, you could actually, to me, more easily think like this is real. Two dudes hate each
Yeah.
other, just like pounding each other. Like you can actually buy into that without really thinking too hard about it. Your brain can like shut off and it's like, oh shit, this is real. They work snug, they work so good. And this is a match, to finish my thought from like a minute ago, this was a match that got hype as like the dog collar match. And there have been others which arguably are better. I actually feel like we're gonna talk about it a little bit, but the FDR Briscos match was probably better in some sense, but is that going to be as iconic as this one was? I don't know. But at the same
I
time, it could be iconic not because it's like the first that ever happened, but it's iconic because it was like so well done and became kind of like the gold standard for so many years.
yeah.
But I don't know. I thought this was a fantastic match.
I liked what I liked about it too. It's something that modern wrestling also messes up. It was short. It was like 13, 14 minutes. Like it got the job done. It wasn't over long. They didn't like get too cute with anything. They just got in there, and you'll be surprised. I should we'll do it at some point, obviously, but like you'd be struck by how short the Magnum TA Tully Blanchard I Quit Cage match is too.
I
It wasn't that I Quit match? Was that the one that Magnum won by Jim and like the
Yeah, the busted
yeah?
wood chair in his eye. Yeah, that's a really
So
great
I had that
match.
on tape. I had that on tape, and that like tape like the video store was selling their copy of like whatever old NWA like tape that was, Jim Crockett promotion tape that was. So I had it, but I haven't seen that in like probably 2 decades or more. Like I don't remember how long that match was.
Under 20.
It could have been like 5 minutes for all I know. 20?
I rewatched it a couple years ago and I was shocked by how short it was, but I think it was like sub 20.
I know you guys were talking about in chat. The question came up, and you guys mentioned the chain. I know Piper in interviews would say he got logging chain, which we're talking like links like this. And I'm like I said, I'm wearing this because this is the chain that I had for my match, and I just thought it'd be a fun gimmick. Whenever you get like it always bugged me that whenever you would have the chains that were like the little dog collar chains, it's like that. Man, that just maybe it was just that we would use them a lot for our dogs or something like that, but it was just not. I don't know. It feels like it loses credibility for me, and so um, I don't. I like the fact that they were that Piper Valentine were using the heavier stuff, and so were FTR Briscos. But I won't go. We'll wait till we get into that. I just the lighter chains to me take a lot away from the gravity of what the chain is supposed to be.
That makes
Yeah.
sense. I thought this was really good though. Like I
Uh,
think, like Matt said, this was probably like the quintessential dog collar match for a long time.
it. I feel like if I had to guess why, it's because to me, like they did come off like two guys who just hated each other. Like they were not joking around. It wasn't just like it wasn't even like a competition. Like, oh, let's have this strap match to like prove who's the champion, like for a belt or anything like that. It was just two guys who hated each other. Like they needed some violent match to keep them like tethered together and just beat that piss out of each other. Like it came off like that.
This was
So
more of. I'm sorry, man. I'm stepping on you.
no, you go ahead. No.
This was,
Good.
I think, part of what makes this stand out is that this was a brawl, and the dog collar aspect enhanced this brawl as opposed to it being a match that happened to involve a chain, if that makes sense. Like, if you're gonna have, if we're gonna say it set the standard, if you're gonna have a chain match of any kind or a dog collar match of any kind, is it going? You've got a standard set by Piper Valentine. Can you get close to that? You'll be all right. But then there would be people who are trying to have a regular match with a chain involved, and it's like, this is not a gimmick where you do that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So let's go to our next
Hey.
one. Oh, what were you gonna say, Matt?
Can I do real quick?
Yeah.
I looked it up. I was wrong. Like John Cena, to my knowledge, hasn't done a strap match. I was thinking the Russian chain match he did with Rusev. At Extreme
Oh
Rules
yeah,
2015.
that was a good match.
That was wrist to wrist, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's pretty decent. I think that if you're talking about like violent type of matches, Cena's best may have been the Last Man Standing with Umaga
Yeah, it's not
from like God. That's at least like 15 plus years ago. I think at this point,
2006,
maybe.
2007, 2008, one of those.
Yeah. It's a long time ago. I mean, poor Umaga's been gone a long time.
Oh yeah, really long
But
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
So we're gonna
I-
hit. So this is from ECW 1995. I don't remember what time of the year it was. I think it was summer, maybe fall. So this is like, I think the show is called Gangsters in Paradise. So this is the Pitbulls versus Raven and Stevie Richards. So it becomes a 2 out of 3 falls. But so essentially what this is for the tag titles. Raven and Stevie Richards are the champions, and the Pitbulls are essentially, if they don't win the match, their careers are over. So that's kind of the stipulation here. So first thing I'd like to note is that I thought it was really adorable that Beulah and the Pitbulls had matching outfits. So going into this, like, she claims Stevie Richards has a broken arm, which Joey Styles immediately points out is not true. He's not injured. And then Raven says, well, since I'm at a disadvantage here, why don't we do a 2 out of 3 falls match with the dog collar on there? And I like how that plays into it. Like, I really like how his decision here really plays into it, and that they actually point out on commentary. So then I think he gets strapped to 2, Pitbull 2. I thought I thought I had them differentiated, and something happened, and I thought I lost it. So
Pitbull 2 is bald. Pitbull 1 has hair. But I can't remember which one Raven was chained to.
I think he was chained to bald.
He was trained to Pitbull too.
Okay.
Pitbull 2. Yeah.
Okay. So,
Which, hold on, before we get into it, just as an aside, like the Pitbulls seemed like they really should have been something more than they were.
they were too small.
Like for this match, really? Well, maybe.
They're too short. I'm sorry, they're too short because they were they're really weird if you haven't seen them visually. They're short guys, but they're like roid freaks too. They're kind of like a really bizarre looking combo.
Well, and at around this time frame, like 96, 97, like specifically Pitbull 2 was, they were tag team obviously, and they were pushed well. And that's the thing that really I came off it, especially at the end of this match. Like because I mean, I saw ECW at the time, and I was into like the Pitbulls, like, and I was into everything like ECW at the time, like 96, 97. I since then I've like really soured on ECW, or I'm like I don't like it. Like viscerally don't like the vast majority of it, but it really came off to me. It's like, oh, this is basically the Pitbulls were essentially, to me, it came off to me that this was Paul Heyman's attempt to kind of in ECW recreate like the Road Warriors. Like he was trying to do this big like unstoppable monster tag team, like just came out there. And obviously, they probably took more. They took more offense, like the Road Warriors generally did. But
Yeah, but
They
they
were
didn't
supposed to
have
be like
the.
this big.
I don't think
God,
it wouldn't have looked right. Like you have to have the aura of the Road Warriors to do what the Road Warriors do. So like if you recreate them, you kind of have to tweak it based on the guys. So guys like this need to take like offense. But what I was surprised
yeah,
by is, so if you've never seen the Pitbulls wrestle, like your first impression of them is going to be like, oh, these guys are going to be stiffs, and they're not stiffs. Like I don't know how good I would say they are, but they have talent. Like I kind of agree they're too short, but like I'm surprised they didn't get like a WCW like run when they were
Yeah.
signing everyone.
well, I have a theory about that, which I think is a theory that probably is true, and most people will probably agree with it. Or the real story might be is that I mean, Pitbull 2 died. He died in 2003, but essentially, like the Pitbulls left ECW in 1997. I'm not exactly sure why it could be
Whoa,
because
one
Paul
was
Heyman, as we
doing
said,
no,
oh, go
one
ahead.
was doing a lot of single stuff because you look at Barely Legal, it was Shane Douglas and Pitbull one for the TV.
Pitbull 2, Pitbull
Oh,
2,
sorry.
because for a time Pitbull 1 was injured, but Pitbull 2 maybe because of the injury, but they really actually Heyman pushed Pitbull 2, like
Yeah,
to the point where it's like he could have been or should have been like the breakthrough star.
yeah,
But my theory, they could have left in '97 because like Heyman wasn't paying them or
not
what
a
have you. I
bad
mean, like
theory.
Sid, yeah, with Sid, like we just did the Sid episode. Like, I mean, very plausible. But it's also because Pitbull 2, I think, had because well, I guess they left in like '97, and then they were basically on the Indies and didn't do much of anything. I think they may have came back like once or twice in like 2000, like the dying days of ECW, but they didn't really do anything. And then Pitbull 2 number 2 died in 2003. So it's like, what did he do in like the 5, 6 years since then? Not a lot, but he was horribly addicted to drugs. And I can see a match like this and remember like his ECW run at this time. And you could almost lament like, oh, like he could have done more with his career. But if you actually listen or read up, and it's on like Wikipedia or whatever, it's easy to find the circumstances of his death. I almost am kind of like, you know what? Fuck you, you piece of shit. He died because he and his girlfriend, who they had 2 kids, decided like, oh, it's a good idea, to shoot up fentanyl
Oh God.
while their children were there. And it's not like, oh, I'm doing this when my children, age 10 and 8, are here, which is bad enough, obviously. But they did it and died and were dead a few days.
Did both of them die?
Yeah,
Oh
they
God.
both died of an overdose. They're doing fentanyl. Like they both died of an overdose with their 2 children, age 21 months and 8 months.
Oh God.
Luckily, the children were found after a couple days by relatives. The 8-year-old was like in her crib. The 21-month-old, thankfully, was old enough that he was able to get some like food and milk, while the parents are dead, decomposing.
Ugh.
Like, fuck you, pieces of shit. Okay, I maybe have this visceral reaction just because I have 2 small kids too. They're older than that. Well, my youngest is like 18 months, but like that's horrific to me. So it's like fuck you. But I mean, that's my theory. Like he probably was so bad of a drug addict that other
No,
companies were like, no.
if you're
And maybe even Paul Heyman was like too much. Even at ECW, he may have been like too much.
if you're doing if you're if you're ODing with your kids in the house, like you're way deep into the addiction part of it. Like,
Oh, you're bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
you're
just
You
I
think that it's a good idea to be doing that shit when you have 2 small kids. It's bad enough. Look, like I don't do drugs, but it's also like you can't even like it's not like you can get Chad, you have 2 small kids. It's like you can't even be like, oh, I'm gonna get wasted. It's like you can't even do that shit. That's irresponsible. Why would you even think about doing that? Let
I
alone like this
can't.
kind of
Yeah.
creep being like, oh, I'm gonna shoot up fentanyl.
Well,
Like, you know what?
I mean,
the
at that
addiction
point,
mindset is really like the biggest problem with addiction is that it rewires your brain to take over everything as the priority. And to like Matt, you and me, it's repugnant to do that sort of thing with 2 small kids like that.
They can't kids that it's like again, they cannot fend for themselves.
No,
It is a wonder. It is
not
a
at all.
wonder those children survived.
Yeah, and it is like I worry at this point. My kids are they're both in school now, and there's still times when I'm like, if I fell down the stairs or something, do they, I still am concerned about what would happen. Like, I understand your animosity. I also understand that, dude, addiction is a fucker, and it
yeah.
ruins everything.
Well,
And
without
so I don't,
I don't condone it. I think it's terrible, but like I
it,
think when you're doing it at that point, like the only thing that your brain can even deal with is where you're getting your next
yeah,
hit
that's
from.
what I mean.
yeah,
It rewires you. And
perhaps.
it is like Matt, don't hear me downplay your
Oh no, I'm
disgust
not.
towards it.
You without getting too much into our own personal lives, I know that you do work with individuals who have struggled with addiction. So you perhaps have more compassion than I do. And I'm not someone who lacks compassion. It's
Someone
just that I
who's
guess I'm more like appalled at
you're
what happened. That
you
I
are
cannot look through and have that compassion
It's
yeah,
that you
you are
might have.
viscerally
Because
repulsed by it. And I don't blame you.
that yes, yeah,
And I don't blame you at all. That is
yeah,
I mean, God, that is a son of a bitch. And
yeah.
I've had people in my classes who have admitted to me that's like the thing that they usually say to me is,
Mhm.
I would drop my kids off with someone so I could go get high. And my response to that is, I'm glad you thought enough of your kids to drop them off with somebody.
Yeah,
That
It's
unfortunately is as awful as that is. That's
that's
light
responsible at
years better
least.
than what
Yeah,
happened. Yeah, that light
and
than what happened in this
but
situation.
to the point that Brad was making too, if because that was Anthony Durante, if he was that
Yeah,
far gone, then yeah, he's like no one's gonna want to hire him if he's that deep in the grasp. And
and yeah, and
the other
in
hell of it,
'97. Go ahead.
the other hell of it is getting back out of that sort of thing. Like on average, the average for somebody who has opioid addiction is 7 attempts at getting clean before it sticks. And that is now with the knowledge we have now. That is not what 2002,
three.
2003
Yeah,
where OxyContin is still being handed out like M&Ms and nobody knows what it's doing to them. And it's like there was so much we didn't know about it then, but there was enough to take a look at it and go, that guy is screwed up enough that we don't want him in the ring with the people on our roster. Like, I totally get that. I get where you're coming from. And it is, like, that event is repulsive, and the path to get
Yeah,
there is tragic and heartbreaking, is the best way I can put it. It's, God bless. Why? There are
it's
very few
terrible.
things that get me fired up like this, but
Right.
the fact that the Sacklers have not been chained to the back of a truck and drugged through the country like that. Mm,
I
I get mob justice. Let's put it that
I'm on
way.
both. I'm kind
Go
of
ahead.
between both of you. Like I agree with Matt. That's wildly irresponsible, and like I have a big issue with it. But like I also like I also like understand it. It's not like a it's not like an excuse for the behavior because the behavior is inexcusable. But like I said, like when you're at that point, like where you're overdosing with your kids in the house, like you're kind of gone at that point. Like you're kind of like if I like I think it's one of those things like if you told that guy when he was like a young man and not like an addict yet that that was going to be his end, he would probably be horrified beyond like belief. Um so like I I don't necessarily I don't know how to put how I feel about it. Is like I don't necessarily have sympathy for them, but I also feel bad about it. Like that's kind of like I feel bad that that's how his life ended up. Like I think because it's kind of like my feelings on it are kind of like how I feel about mental illness, which I struggle with, which is kind of what the last podcast on the left says about it. And that's kind of my attitude towards mental illness is like, it's not your fault, but it's your responsibility. And like, the thing you'll see with me is I'm very sympathetic to it. But like when people start using like their mental illness as an excuse, like I'm the first person to start beating them up and be like, no, like you need to go do whatever you can to get your head right because like I've been there and it sucks and like you have to get yourself well. Like and I think that's kind of like the mentality I have towards that. Like I feel bad for the kids. Like the kids like they lost their parents like at a really young age and I mean both of them. But man like I just it's just a bitch, man. Like
Here, this is given what today is, because we got on this topic and now we're thinking about it.
and I'm glad wrestling kind of doesn't have this problem anymore.
Yeah, well, as much. Here's just because it's Suicide Awareness Day. Anybody who hears this, watches it, whatever. If you're in a bad place and you're in the U.S. or Canada, call or text 988, National Mental Health Crisis Line. Let them help you. You deserve the help, okay? And look, the path to getting, like Brad said, mental health is not your, mental illness is not your fault. It is your responsibility. Addiction. You know what? I have actually got people in my work who their addiction was oddly actually not their fault. It wasn't, but it still comes out to be their responsibility. And there are people who are absolutely willing to help you with it if you'll let them.
Yeah, and I'll talk about my journey with it. So I suffer from depression and anxiety. So I got medicated. I think it's been 3 years now, and it's changed my life. And like, honestly, I told my doctor. They asked me a couple questions. They weren't judgmental or anything. They just asked me some questions. I answered them, and they're like, "Okay, we're gonna try you on this one." And so they started me on the first pill, and it worked pretty well for me. And something happened like a couple weeks into it, and I had a reaction to it, and I had this moment of like, oh, this is how normal people like react in these situations. And like it's a learning process because I had to learn like negative emotions were okay. It was just like the proportionality of everything. But and I've been in therapy and therapy, like if your idea of therapy is what you see on TV, it's honestly not what it is. When I went to therapy, like honestly, most times like I would just bitch about things for an hour and they'd listen to me and they'd maybe like offer some insight. But honestly, if your therapist is telling you things like giving you advice and stuff, that's actually kind of unethical for that field. They're supposed to kind of just listen and like kind of help you process things. So it's not like what you would see on TV. They're not going to sit down and be like, blah, 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 blah. They're just going to listen a lot and maybe like offer some insight and stuff. But yeah, so I told a doctor, I told my doctor, he's like, okay, we're going to get you some of these happy pills to try. And they worked pretty well for me. I wasn't suicidal at the time. I see in like hindsight that I was headed down that path and stuff. But so my personal, I'm 43. When I really thought about it, I told my doctor at the time, I think like a decade, and then I got off the phone. I'm like, oh, I think I lied. I think it was more like 20 years. And then I realized like I'd probably been suffering from it since I was like a teenager.
I so I had I actually did kind of get close once, and I knew that it wasn't right because I could look around and go, I don't. There is no good reason for me to feel like this, so therefore something is wrong. And I did. You know what? We in chat we need to drop the Eddie Kingston thing about it because he does a great job talking about it. But you know, I just told my doctor, right? My problem came out of my thyroid is messed up, and if it's not treated, my hormones are screwed up. If my hormones are screwed up, then what that does to me is it makes it real easy for me to go down in the valley and not come back up. And then what I discovered is that makes it makes me more susceptible to it. So after we lost my dad, I went to my doctor. I'm like, look, doc, I know what this is like. I'm having a hard time not being down in the valley. And she talked with me, and she's like, we're going to try this. And it's worked very well. It's just, I try to live at content. I don't try to live at happy. Because if you're chasing happy all the time, you don't ever catch it. And you don't appreciate it when you've got it. I try and live at content. And then enjoy the happy when it's there. And then whenever I have a bad day, I don't have as far to climb out of it.
Yeah, I still have, that's kind of me. Like, so I still have my bad days, I have my bad weeks, but like, it's like if I get low, because I still have like depressive cycles, but like depressive before was like here for like, I'm touching my desk. It was like here for months, and depression now is like here for like a week with some like varying back and forth. So it's like, it like keeps me more narrow emotionally. And there's some like weird reactions to it. Like I'm much more prone, like if something happens, I'm much more prone to like have an angry reaction versus before. But then like the aftermath is like, I got mad, I'm done. It doesn't sit with me all day. So like there's some differences.
It's clinical depression is, I think the clinical diagnosis is if it is more than 3 months of feeling that way. And that's got to take into the account that sometimes it is typical to feel that way. And so it's
also,
you just do.
Also, if you're feeling depressed, make sure you're sleeping 8 hours a night, because I was listening to something. A lot of people, if you just sleep enough, that'll kick you enough in the other direction to end your depression. So like if you're sleeping 5 hours a night and you're feeling depressed, like take into account like you might be depressed, but you also might need to sleep more.
Yeah.
Because I know for me, if I'm not sleeping enough, my anxiety goes way up and out of control on me.
Because your brain does not get a chance to clean itself out the way it needs to. We're gonna get we're already way far afield, but look, here's the thing. If you're watching this, if you're listening, whatever, y'all, you need take care of yourselves. If you break your leg, you get a cast on it. If you break your brain, they can't put a cast on it. You gotta do something else, and that's what the something else is. Anybody who's like, oh, you just gotta get over it or what? Shut up. You know what? Send them to me. I'll fight them. We'll do this. Have them come on this way. It's like, oh, if you're depressed, you need to just get over it. It's like, oh, how about if I punch you in the head hard enough that it alters your brain chemistry? Can you just get over it? No. it's not possible. God, pisses me. Anyway,
So
chain matches.
yeah, well, no, dog collar matches. So
That,
Yes.
that long segue. That long segue was just me trying to say like this began with like the Pitbulls probably should have been
wow,
more of a thing than they were, but
remember the last time this happened, we were making fat jokes about Yokozuna, and we saw he died like a year after that show, and then it took us down that. And then I
yeah,
felt bad about the jokes. Um,
yeah.
so I'm gonna say so. Pretty much what happens is, so they put him and one together, I think, and then
Okay.
two goes to the backstage and finds Stevie Richards, and so they come out, and Stevie Richards already has color, which is
Yeah.
pretty funny. And they're just wailing on him, and then they bring a table out, and Raven actually outsmarts himself here, which I really liked because Raven pretty quickly pile drives one through a table and pins him, and it's
Two.
like,
Pitbull too.
oh, okay, sorry. And it's like, oh, you dumbass. Had you not put the 2 out of 3 falls thing, you would have been out of here and fine, but you
Oh yeah.
screwed yourself. So they go to the next fall.
But I actually that to me was like that actually bothered me because it's like this match didn't need to be 2 out of 3 falls. I presume it was 2 out of 3 falls because it's like it gave each side like, as they say, a visual pin. But
Yeah.
I mean, it was an actual pin, technically an actual pin. But I mean,
But-
it got both sides like a pin over the other before they had the ultimate schmaz finish. But
I think from Raven's perspective, like let's get into the mind of Raven here. I think his idea was, hey, if I do 2 out of 3 falls, like there's a way I can weasel out of this. Because I think he thought he was going to get his ass beat and he was going to get pinned like right off the bat, and then he was going to figure out a way out of it. I don't think he expected that he was kind of going to get a flash pinfall on one of them, and it would have been out of there and fine. Like I think he outsmarted himself, but I think that was kind of his logic was like, okay, like if I have some wiggle room, I can get out of this. Is kind of what I think he was thinking.
The way that I took the 2 out of 3s thing with Raven getting that first fall is the fact that with it being 2 out of 3, the Pitbulls had enough confidence, like, well, we can't lose the whole thing right away. So the other one goes looking for Stevie Richards, and that gives Raven the opening to do it. That's the only reason he got the chance to. Because if it hadn't been 2 out of 3 falls, they just would have curb stomped him and super bombed him, and then that's all there is to it. I think that is exactly what gave him the opening for kayfabe, obviously, but in terms of the story, how to do that.
Yeah, so then this kind of keeps breaking down. Then Raven gets super bombed through a table, which I was actually, shockingly, I was really impressed with how much they took care of him on the super bomb. So this evens it up. Now this is where it just kind of goes off the walls crazy. What were you gonna say, Matt?
before you get to that, I actually wrote that down on my notes. Like, I remember from this time frame, they did the super bomb a lot as their finisher. And watching this, because the super bomb happened like more than once in this match, but
And they're kind of doing it
it
to
actually
every.
was. It was, but I guess I don't recall because I mean, visually it's like, oh, it's a power bomb from the top rope, but especially in this match, like I looked at every time they did it, and it was actually super protected. Like the only time it was weird is like at the end when it was like they were doing it to like Raven and Stevie Richards at the same time. It's like, okay, this you're doing too much there. But when they did the super bomb, they carefully got the guy in position, and then Pitbull too, because he's the one who would actually do the move. He held them for a good long time, and then he didn't carelessly throw them. He like threw them, but did it in a way that it kind of directed their landing. And if you actually watch, like, I mean, whoever was taking the move, Stevie or whomever else, like they could easily had plenty of time. It's like as soon as they felt the release, tuck their chin to protect their head and neck, and they could easily like position themselves and have plenty of time where they could take a flat back bump essentially. It was actually like oddly really protected. Now when they first did it to Stevie, he did it through the table, so it's like, oh, it's dangerous. But he actually, I felt like, did it more like the thoracic to lumbar spine, like the mid to lower back.
They
Mhm.
Like he took it.
what I
Which slows you
noticed,
down.
they also
Yes, but it still seemed oddly like really
well
protective
they
for a move
also
of that
they also
severity.
they also what I noticed is they released him really high and gave him a lot of freedom to like come down
Yeah,
how he wanted to.
no, yeah, they released him. That's why I say it was like oddly safe in that they were, excuse me, they released him in a way that he had plenty of time that he could kind of like position himself as he came down. Expect like I'm gonna land, but it was oddly like for ECW at the time, with it being unprotected chair shot after
Yeah.
unprotected chair shot, and gangsters just doing crazy, New Jack doing like insane stuff. Like it was one of the more protected spots I've seen in ECW. And I'm like, oh,
I
it was fascinating to me in like in comparison to other
I
things we saw in ECW.
I actually was surprised because I kind of came away from this match and I'm like, like other than we'll talk about it in a minute, other than the one big mess up they had, I was like, they didn't do anything overly stupid in this match and I didn't feel anything was like super unsafe. And the one thing that went wrong, I
Yeah.
don't know what happened there because so there's one where they go for the super bomb on Raven and he like bounces his head off the table and the camera kind of
Oh yeah.
screwed it up and I don't know what happened there because he looked like he was launching and it all looked fine. And then Raven hit the table weird. And I don't know if he didn't, I don't know what happened there. I like, it's just like they missed. Like they misjudged.
It looked to me like Raven didn't get quite high enough to have enough downward. He had too much sideways.
Okay. But I was really shocked on that one because like I said, it looked good and then he just hit his head on the table. And even then, like they gave him a second to rebound.
Yeah.
And then they kind of had a thing where he did like a double table spot on the outside, and that he kind of screwed that up a bit. It worked because and on that one he just. Well, okay. So one thing to realize these aren't gimmick tables. Like the metal frame is still there, which they used to do. So
Yeah.
sometimes back in the day, which you kind of forget, is sometimes it didn't go right. So he does like a double table spot, and he just he should have gone full body on top of him, and he kind of went for like an elbow drop, and it only got him through one table. So he might have been concussed at the time, but he got him through the other table. So I think it was a mess up, but it's like a forgivable mess up. Like it didn't take anything away. And then you get Beulah and Francine catfighting because it's ECW. You need a couple of women catfighting around, and then Raven DDTs Francine because it's ECW. Not an ECW show if a woman's not getting beaten up. And then so they're just like, I think they broke like 8 or 9 tables through this. And they're brawling in the crowd. I think Pitbull one hit Stevie Richards, something a fan gave him at ringside, I saw.
I didn't see what it was.
Yeah, I didn't either. And so pretty much, what was the spot? I should have written it down. What spot hurt Pitbull 1? Was it the table thing? So Pitbull 1 gets eliminated from the match and he gets taken out on a stretcher. So then,
yeah, I think it.
And I also liked Raven actually gets the collar off of the other Pitbull after the double table spot. So that was kind of a clever little like subversion of it. So anyway, the Pitbull gets removed, so it's a 2-on-1, and Tommy Dreamer comes out, and I made a joke in the chat. I'm like, well, it's nice to see that Tommy Dreamer was just a B cup in 1995. But
That goes with Raven. Every time I hear a shoot interview with Raven, anytime they bring up Tommy Dreamer, he calls Tommy Dreamer a fat ass.
yeah.
It's just like, okay, all right, I got you.
And so then Tommy Dreamer comes out, he pins Raven with the DDT. They're celebrating, and Bill Alfonso comes out and pretty much says, like, this isn't, it was hard to understand. Their production isn't great, so the audio is kind of hard, but essentially he was saying, like, this isn't going to work because Tommy wasn't in the match, and he's not going to allow it, so he's giving the titles back. And then Todd Gordon, which V3 is not going to understand. So V3 before
Vectron.
Vectron.
That's Vectron.
Vectron. Okay, so Todd Gordon is like the on-air commissioner of ECW, and there's like this story about, I think he was like screwing some lady in a hotel room, making her say Todd is God. So the meme behind it is people say Todd is God. So he comes out, and all I was just thinking is like Todd is God, like Todd is God.
Hold on. I got it. I'm sorry. You just remind me. I got to share this because I got curious. Why is it every time someone does the Falcon Arrow, it says he did the deal?
Mm-hmm.
It was, oh God, I can't remember the guy's name now. Chris Hero was telling the story, and he was telling the story about this woman he picked up. He had in his car, and he's like, we're in there, and we're like doing the deal, and he's like, and Chris Hero looks at him and goes, "You were giving her a Falcon Arrow?" He's like, "No, man, we're in there doing the deal," and apparently that became the running gag because of the way he's holding his arms. Looks like he's giving someone a Falcon's Arrow for hooking up with this woman in the car. Doing the deal. That's where that came from. And that is the funniest damn retrospect. Like, in retrospect, the funniest damn... Because that means that every time someone does a Falcon Arrow on AEW, or sometimes WWE, someone makes a sex joke right after.
There's a hilarious James Mitchell story from Smoky Mountain, where like they had hooked up with these ring rats, which weren't very attractive, and they were in a hotel room. I think they hooked up with them to get beer, and he says Brian Lee's like came out, and he's like, "What are you guys doing?" It's like, "You see these cowboy boots?" He's like, "I got these cowboy boots. I haven't given up the dick once."
By the way, from Chris Hero's story, it was Mitch Ryder.
Oh, he. Yeah, so
Mitch Ryder was doing the deal.
Mitch Ryder was in Chikara, and he's one of the guys that blew Mike Quackenbush up. But sadly, he died within the last decade.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
He died not that long ago. Let me look it up.
I think he had a heart attack.
Still.
But one of his emails is what helped blow up Mike Quackenbush.
Oh.
And he was like, he's been around a while. But I love Mitch Ryder.
Oh, man. Now I gotta...
So anyway...
2020.
Oh, yeah.
Died at age 48.
Yeah. So,
Marvelous Mitch Ryder.
So, Todd Gordon comes out, pretty much is like, "Hey, I'm the commissioner. I can do what I want." Bill Alfonso kind of pushes him over, and then 911 comes out and chokeslams him, which was a really nice chokeslam, by the way. Like, I miss guys holding them up there for a second to kind of like accentuate it.
You caught Alfonso was contributing to that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it was kind of a cool spot. Like, so they all kind of like help, and they pretty much do a double super power bomb because they take Raven and they put like Stevie on top of Raven. And I was a little scared about it, but they were really safe about it because they all kind of like helped out. And then Todd Gordon counts the three. Pitbulls are your new ECW tag team champions. And I have to say, I'd seen this a long time ago. I've always thought highly of this match, and I stand by my opinion that this is arguably the best ECW match ever.
I don't know if I would say that just because there are like some RVD Jerry Lynn matches which I would probably rate higher.
I think
it's
narratively it's really good though. Like if you want to, if I was someone to say what's ECW like, I would plop this match down. Like this is everything ECW is. Like condensed down into 30 minutes, and you'll enjoy it.
So again, I'm like the ECW hater. I almost feel like you're being too kind because I feel like this is like the best side of ECW. So this is not, it's like the higher end of ECW. Like this is indicative of an ECW because there's most of ECW I felt was just unmitigated crap. But again, I'm being a hater. But I did think this match was good. I liked it. I felt narratively, I would agree. Like I think narratively it was good. I thought though that it to me like the schmaz at the end where it's like a bunch of run-ins and the extra crap. Like I started like to not like it at all. But
I
That's
was
where
okay.
the ECW got to ECW.
Oh, I forgot. I
Yeah,
forgot the
it was too much for me.
I forgot
God,
the Dudleys ran in too because I was laughing because
but not the Dudleys,
no,
everyone knows Bubba and
yeah.
Devon, and to a lesser extent Spike.
So this is
But
Dudley Dudley and Dances with Dudley, which I like how you can
yeah,
tell who Dances with Dudley is because he had tassels on his boots, and I think it was Big
yeah,
Dick
the
Dudley
fringe.
that
Yeah,
was on, but
Big Dick Dudley did make an appearance. Yeah,
yeah, but so what I was laughing about is Dudley is punching one of them in the head, and I'm like, oh, those are decent punches. Then I'm looking, I'm like, I think he's really just punching him in the head.
Yeah.
But so the Dudleys get destroyed in that. One of my favorite ones is like they're like, I see all these different Dudleys and it's a little racially inappropriate what they said. It was like, I think Mama Dudley was just a whore
yeah.
because there was Dudley. Well, there's Bubba
Well,
Ray, Devon, Spike. Then there's Dudley, Big
it's
Dick Dudley, Dances with Dudley, Sign Guy Dudley,
Sign Guy Dudley.
and then I think there was another Dudley.
so the story, and the only reason I remember this is because it is. I was shocked to see it as a literary reference. They're half brothers because of their daddy, Willie Loman Dudley. Willie Loman being a death of a salesman reference in ECW of all places. And I'm like, is that the one book? Like the one book that Paul Heyman remembered reading in high school or something? I don't understand.
He's a big
I
Arthur Miller
remember
fan, I guess.
it's at some point there was somebody who put up a different ECW match as the best ECW match, and I can't remember what it was. I don't.
Ray Psychosis is is the best star ECW match, but I don't consider like if you watch Ray and Psychosis like I think it was their Mexican death match. If you watch that one, it's an amazing match, but it's Ray and Psychosis who are always awesome, but it doesn't give you like necessarily the flavor of ECW. Just like the M Pro six man doesn't.
It's a good match, but it's not like it's an ECW match.
Yeah.
It's almost just like if you were to take, I mean, they're both now in AEW. This is a bad example. He's hurt, but it's like if you did like Okada versus Omega,
Mhm.
like when Omega's healthy, and it's like, yeah, they're both in the AEW, but this wouldn't necessarily be like an AEW match.
Yeah.
It would only because you're both in AEW. It's like, but if you worked it more like a New Japan style match, it's like, well, or you could take it anywhere. You could take two random guys, like it's just have them doing a match. It's like, no, it's not indicative of the promotion that you're in. It's just more like two guys who are really good,
Like
who are doing the same type of like really quality lucha match.
Showcased you.
It's just in your promotion. Yeah.
They showcased you and Bravo Heyman. No, I'm not saying this like I'm not being backhand about this, but like, yeah, you showcased it. Bravo Heyman, like I'm glad you spotlighted something different for North America because especially in 1995, like people needed something different. Like
Yeah, that's probably what helped open the door and get that flood going. But
yeah,
okay,
but
I'm with you though, Matt. It's like watching ECW stuff. I'm just like,
I like this because it was so why I still like this is it gave me that remembrance of like when I was young and dumb and liked ECW, but it didn't have any of the baggage of watching ECW. Like there wasn't anything super dangerous, nothing like really made me cringe. Even Raven, DDT, and Francine like made sense within context. Like it wasn't what's the word? It wasn't like
It wasn't like gratuitous.
yeah, gratuitous is the word I'm looking for. Like he was like saving his valet from her. So like, that's why I think I still like it is because like the narrative was pretty good. The schmoz at the end was kind of a little much, but that's ECW for you. But like there wasn't anything that made me cringe. Like I think that's why I still like it and think it's a good match to show off.
No, I think it's a good match. In fairness, I would agree with you. Like I can hate on like the schmaz and not liking ECW, but I would agree. It's like it even be quibbling about that, saying like I don't like that, I don't prefer that. It still wasn't like it. I'll use the word again, gratuitous, but it also wasn't like excessive, where it's like they had the schmaz, but it wasn't also like the schmaz happened, and the schmaz was like maybe let's say 5 minutes, but it wasn't like let's drag the schmaz out for like 20 minutes. And then all of a sudden, I don't know if they were there yet, but it's like all of a sudden the gangsters show up and like they start brawl. It's like no, it wasn't excessive. It
No.
was a smudge, which I didn't like, but
And it made
it did its
sense, like
purpose.
it wasn't
It did make a sense, yeah.
yeah, like they all had a reason to be there and they were all like taken.
Yeah. There was verisimilitude. It was internally consistent.
It was
Yeah.
like it was like that one we watched in Memphis. I think it was like Rick Rude and King Kong. No, Rick Rude and Jim Neidhart versus like Tommy Rich and Eddie Gilbert, where like people just kept coming out because someone they were feuding with got involved, so they were coming out to get theirs. It was kind of like
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah.
So, should we go on to the last one on the list?
Did you have
We
any
should.
thoughts on it besides the schmaz, Shad?
We kind of already hit everything I had. What were you going to say, Matt?
Just really quickly, because he was mentioned, one of Mitch Ryder,
Yeah.
when he died like in early August 2020, so it's been a little over 4 years now. Chris Hero had a tweet, which I just appreciate, because like Mitch Ryder was one of a kind. I spent a few short years around him and have a lifetime of stories. He was always good to me and an absolute pleasure to watch in his element. You know how Falconero equals he did the deal. That came from Mitch. Rest in peace, my friend.
Awesome.
So our last match is so I don't remember what I picked as my match of the year for 2022. On rewatch of this, like the sad but great thing is like I can't remember because there are two FTR Briscoe matches this year, and I can't remember which one I picked as match of the year. So this is Final Battle.
3?
No, the other one
think
was
there was
20.
The other one was the year before.
Yeah.
It was the calendar year
okay.
before.
I just
Yeah.
remember that they had like a 3-match sequence,
Yeah, it
essentially.
Yes.
That
You're
was
right.
fantastic.
Because if you look
And I think
if you looked on their trunks, they had their title reign on the back of their trunks. But so
when we talked a couple of years ago about this, I think I did, maybe Shad too, more than once. We like kind of did put FTR Briscoes as like our feud of the year, and it was fantastic. Like,
Yeah.
and I think this was the blow off, right?
yeah, this is.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, sadly, Jay.
This is-
You would hope.
Sadly,
you would hope like a big.
Sadly, Jay was dead
Well.
like a month later.
Yeah.
After this.
It was like 2 weeks after this happened. He had his wreck.
Yeah. So this is
but-
FTR versus Briscoes Final Battle 2022, dog collar match. So my first impression that I liked about this narratively is I liked how FTR was like, these guys are crazy, so we're just gonna have to attack the crazies with their own crazy. So they kind of went out of their element and just went all out. So this is just all over the place at first. Like, they're brawling. Both Briscoes are just bleeding to heaven and back. The Froggy Bow got whipped out for this, which I always love.
I love the Froggy Bow.
Yeah.
I love it so much. This match is this is my favorite dog collar match that's ever happened. I had last week this past Friday, I had some folks that it's my fault they were getting into wrestling, and I was like, I said, okay. They're like, what's some stuff you'd recommend? I was like, oh, we'll just watch it at the same time and be in voice chat together. This was the first thing I sent them, because it is not only a brutal dog collar match, but also the guys are so damn good. And one of the things that I point out about how good they are is, unlike what happened in the ECW double dog collar match, these guys never got the chains crossed up. Raven at one point is like pulling at him, trying to get them separated because they're all crossed up. These guys kept their chains separate the entire time. They never got tied up together, and the whole thing just kept flowing the whole way. It's just so good.
And it's getting real when and, oh man, he was bleed. I don't know if Mike Posey was supposed to be removed from the match, but that blade job he did, because so this is like pretty much they did the old Jay pulled, no, it was Mark, sorry, Mark pulled the ref in the way of like he had wrapped the chain around his fist, he was going to punch him, and Mark pulled the ref in front of him.
I think it was Jay though. I think you're right the first time. I think it was Jay because Jay was tied to Dax, and Dax was the one who like clocked.
Okay,
Ref.
I felt like it was Mark for some reason.
Did he gig, like intentionally gig, or did he go hard way? Like, cause he got busted.
Oh,
he was busted open.
No, he was the way he was. No, I think he might have cut himself a little too much.
I think he bladed because, and I'll tell you why I think that is because typical hardways.
You ran the razor, brother.
Through here. Typical hardways are through here. He was busted open right there.
It seemed almost.
I
mean, the way he was bleeding, it almost seemed like right here.
Yeah.
And where like the hairline is, which to me sounds more like
he could have
intentional blade job. Like
he could have Jim Cornetted it too, because for Vector, so there's a story where Jim Cornette was supposed to blade and he never bladed before, and he did it once. There's no blood. He did it again. And he did it again, and he's just bleeding like a stuck pig. And he goes backstage, and Dusty's like, "I told you to get a little color, baby.
You could get a little juice. TBS is gonna be mad at us,
baby."
But so he's bleeding like
a little juice.
He's bleeding like a stuck pig and gets taken out on a stretcher. And I kind of wonder if he bladed a little too hard. But I was going to say, too, when they bust hard way, it's always kind of like awkward and weird, like the way they're bleeding, too. But
I've got the scar right here from mine. Like
you hit the
right there.
You hit like the like nut in the buckle, didn't you, or something? I'm down in the corner and the guy does this running knee. And it pushes my head right where the rope comes into the turnbuckle where the padding's thin. And since it's cable, it pressed it right onto one of those cable strands. And that was just thin and fine enough that it just split the skin right there. I mean, it went back together great. But it bled real nice. How many? I was trying to think. I couldn't think of any off the top of my head. I know it's had to have happened before. I was thinking, like, how many times have I seen a ref blade before?
Well, apparently, Bill Alfonso damn near killed himself doing it, so.
Oh, yeah, well, Bill's a maniac. I have a soft spot for Bill just because Bill's like, I don't know, like, there's something, I think Bill Alfonso I love as a heel so much because there's something rodent-ish about Bill Alfonso that makes you kind of want to hate him.
100%.
And he kind of
100%.
And he kind of owns it too.
Yeah.
But I would say rodentish would be the word I would use for Bill Alfonso. And I think he would agree with that. So this is just a crazy match, honestly.
I love this. It's great.
It is.
And the thing that we've had FTR wins twice. We get this double dog collar, and I do love that the just full bore crazy of the Briscos is what carries them through this. Like
they are completely chaotic in this. Mm-hmm. They have like just an immense like manic chaotic energy.
I was gonna say the word I came out of thinking for them when I was watching this match, like these guys are gangster as fuck. That's all I can think about, like, because they're like this is wrestling to your gimmick because they approach this match just like a couple of backwoods country boys that are there for a fight, and that's how they. And I love that FTR had to meet them like FTR couldn't wrestle like an FTR match. FTR had to meet them on their own turf for it to have a chance.
The kind of theme that I got is that FTR, because they are so good, they did kind of try, and I think that they worked to their advantage. How they were like the more I'll use the term professional of the of the two teams, and like them employing their technical skill and all that, it did serve them well. Like there was long stretches where they were on offense or they got the better of the Briscos, but again, the whole like just chaotic nature of the Briscos and just their like ferocity and everything
And they couldn't,
obviously served them well.
and they're like you couldn't, like where I think where FTR eventually loses this match is like they could just like playing crazy can't keep up with crazy forever, and the crazy just like
Yeah.
won.
Yep.
Because I think that's kind of like the narrative of the match is FTR starts really strong and has them on the defensive, but the Briscos just will not go down. And as the match goes on, the Briscos just keep getting kind of stronger and stronger, and FTR fades and fades and fades. Oh, and they did Mark got hung too, which
Yeah.
he does like he's done it in other matches, but I think the visual with Mark not having the teeth when his dog ate the teeth, but before the match, I think the no teeth really like helps him sell the hang job.
Mm-hmm.
There were some crazy spots in this. I know at about halfway point in this, like Dax is just covered in blood, but I don't think it was his blood. I think it was just Jay's, because Jay was just bleeding like a stuck pig, as they say. But there's a really great spot that Dax did in the match where Jay is down on the ground and Dax climbs up, I think like the second rope, turnbuckle. He's on the ropes and he wraps a chain around his head and does like a dive headbutt. We lost Craigbot. Is Craigbot?
Oh, okay. Oh crap. Okay. I can get this. Let's see. This is gonna show on the stream. I'm sorry, people.
Now recording.
He's back. Okay.
I got it.
Thanks,
Folks, we
Chad.
lost Craigbot. Craigbot down.
Bad
Yeah.
Craig.
Down.
Bad Craig.
I've never had him bail before.
I don't know what happened.
Maybe we crossed him.
He just died. Like something
Craig
happened. to
just
Craigbot.
pieced out.
Anyway,
He's like, I can't take any more chain talk.
It might have been.
we're at the deuces.
It might have been
Left.
we crossed the 2.5 hour mark with him.
Or
Okay.
well, it could be that Craig's like, there's so much talking about chain. Joke's on you. I'm into that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, and I like the finish of the match too.
Good catch
Just to
on
jump.
Craig
Nerv-
bailing on us.
I'm nervous now, bailing on us.
No, he should be fine.
I like the finish of the match where essentially it was a submission, but because Jay like wrapped the chain around Dax's face and was like,
That was
holding on
brutal.
and yeah, and then Cash couldn't like get inside the ring and make the save in time. So it's a good match. Good commentary. Like you mentioned, like it was Ian Riccoboni, right?
Ian Riccoboni
Caprice.
and Caprice Coleman.
Yeah, they were really good. Like I didn't think that they were both not overstated and not understated. Like I think they did a really great job. They weren't over the top. They also weren't like, sedated throughout the whole thing.
I'll be honest.
Really, really good.
I'll be honest. I'm gonna say this is a compliment to them. I forgot they were there.
Yeah.
They did a great job. The best announcers supplement what's going on, and it weaves into what you're watching, as opposed to them shouting over every damn thing.
That's what I say about a good referee in a wrestling match: is you don't notice them until you're supposed to notice them.
Guys, I think we can all agree like this should have been Kevin Kelly commentating.
If by Kevin Kelly commentating you mean we said, "Hey, Kevin, come to the show," and he steps on like this announce here, and it's actually a catapult, and we shoot him into the sun.
If by Kevin Kelly you mean like I just listened to this on mute, just
Oh,
turn the
God.
volume
I-
all the way down,
I-
and
I-
just blissful silence. What's going on?
I've never liked him. I didn't like him in WWE. I didn't like him in Ring of Honor. I hated when he did New Japan shows. Like he was a net negative to Collision. Like I don't know how anyone.
He is fixing to get Angel Hernandez. is what's going to
Yeah.
happen. It is going to become, you got in a court of law, they're going to say you got fired because you sucked at your job.
I don't know what. I think he's suing over severance or something, but I don't know.
Yeah, because he didn't sign the paperwork.
Inside documents. Yeah.
Just FYI for anyone,
Look.
for anyone that's going to defend him, when, if one of us got severance, we'd have to sign for it. Like that's.
Yeah.
Severance is part of an agreement, or it's part of a contract.
Look, I'm in the legal profession. I don't like specifically deal with contract stuff, but I know a little bit enough contracts where if, again, in a situation like this, it's like, please sign these documents. You can't just be like, oh, I'll get to it. And then 6 months later, it's like, oh, I should probably sign that stuff. No, like there is a time limit on this stuff.
It's funny.
No,
It's
it's
how
not like-
people treat their
It's
taxes.
not like
now.
I give, it's not necessarily like I'm going to give you the document. And then it's like, you know, I expect this by like 12 hours from now. Not necessarily, but it's also like you can't just sit on this for like 6 months.
Well, severance.
Like,
severance is
like you sign the documents, dummy. Like sign the documents.
well. Severance is also severance usually has to meet. You have to meet certain qualifications to get severance, and honestly, they were doing him a favor offering him severance instead of just firing him for cause, which they could have done.
Mhm.
Like they were trying to be nice about it, and he was being a dick. But yeah, like anyone, because and honestly, like I'm surprised with like how anti AEW everyone is. Like the Kevin Kelly thing's getting kind of universally clowned on. So are the boys.
Dude, the boys don't have a leg to stand on. The boys were like, well, we didn't want to fly out of this port. We wanted to fly out to the other. And instead of calling them and being like, hey, could we get this switched? They just didn't go.
Well, they also, look, Cornette actually sided with AEW on this, and they kind of dug into it. But they were flying from Nashville because it saved AEW. And remember, they're pretty much nobodies in like the. They wanted them to go to Nashville because it was going to save the company $800 a ticket.
Yeah.
Because like here's the thing. They were flying internationally to Ottawa, which is a hard place to get to, and Knoxville doesn't have a big airport, and Nashville is a big ass hub. And honestly, driving from Knoxville to Nashville is not a big deal.
It's interstate driving.
And AEW said like, they're like, our car can't handle it. AEW was like, we would have like we would have reimbursed your rental.
Yeah.
So I looked it up, and Shad, you would know better, but isn't it like a 3-4 hour drive?
No, it's not 4 hour. It's like
It could be a
maybe
3 hour drive.
It's interstate the whole way.
It wasn't. Well, I mean, so I live in like the DC area. Like if I can understand something where it's like a 3 hour drive, it's like if I where I live, if they're like, okay, fly out of like Philadelphia, and like I gotta go all the way up there and then fly out. But if that's the terms, if my employer is like, yeah, you gotta do this, like maybe I have to do that. I can grumble, but I also can't be like, no, like you're not important. You're not John Moxley. No, you're not Bryan Danielson. You're not important enough to be like, that doesn't work for me, brother. You're a side act. You're a side act to like a mid card act. No offense to Dalton Castle, but
I
it's
love
like
Dalton Castle.
I love Dalton Castle, but it's also like Dalton Castle is not the main guy. He's not even like the main guy in Ring of Honor anymore.
No.
It's like maybe if you're not on Ring of Honor television, it's like you're the sidekick for a guy who has like an 8-minute match on Rampage. Not hating, kind of hating, I guess, but not. Yeah. But it's like, know your place. If they tell you, please drive 3 hours to this airport because it's cheaper for us, then you got to suck it up and do it. You're not important enough to be, or irreplaceable enough that they can be like, once you start being like, I'm gonna no show because it's like, I don't want to do that. No, you can't just be that way.
Yeah.
You're not John Moxley, where you're like, come on, guys. Like, I need something better than this. Like,
Well,
you don't get that privilege.
and they're saying they got blacklisted because of it. It's like, well, no, you got blacklisted because you had this reputation before AEW, and then you did it to AEW. So no, like no, and you got replaced by the Outrunners, who are working much better with, or a much more net positive to Dalton Castle than you are. But it's like, no, you got blacklisted because you had this reputation of being unreliable, and you proved it in AEW. And if you're, and like, and even if they had just done it to AEW, like if I'm an indie promoter, if you're gonna no show a company like AEW that's probably paying you 10 to 20 times what I can pay you to show up, why am I going to invest promotional material and time on my card to you if you're going to no show a national promotion on television? Like, you know what I mean? Like if they did this in WWE, like why am I as an indie promoter that's probably paying you like $250 a piece? Like why am I going to trust you if you're no showing a company that's probably for a date in Ottawa is probably paying you like over $1,000 and you didn't think that was worth showing up for? Like that's why they're blacklisted.
Yeah.
Because like a promoter's not going to trust you if you're doing that to a bigger company.
Look, I'm gonna throw some real shade now. You cannot claim that you're blacklisted in a wrestling universe where Billy Pumpkins still is putting out content. Like you're telling me Billy Pumpkins can't like find a spot on his card for you when he has like the randomest people in his like Crockett Cup every year.
Or
like,
I'm having to behave myself because you say that, Matt, and I'm immediately doing like David Pumpkins in my head.
ACH and Leo Rush got like opportunities after blowing up like big gigs, or you know, even Big Swole got chances until like she just sucked. Like it's an industry
Let's
where
be realistic. Leo Rush is back in AEW. I don't know if he actually has a contract or not. I think he probably does, considering how often he is now on. But that's a guy that like after all of that, like Tony Khan, I think probably couldn't wait to bring him back. And now and he even like I think Leo Rush has even made comments. It's like, yeah, we're good now. Like
my understanding
Big Swole did nothing to help that guy's career. Like
my understanding for the Leo Rush thing is his first run is it was only a 3-month contract. So he came in, he did his stuff, and when he was over, he's like, you know, I'm good, man. And TK, my recollection is he's like, I'm good, I'm with that. And TK's like, well, you know, let me know if you want to come back. And it's like, how the hell are you going to be that kind of, you know, shithead about it, right?
Yeah.
You can't. But then these guys are like, well, I didn't want to.
This is an industry where like literal rapists and murderers still get bookings.
Yeah.
And you're going to say you got blacklisted. Like, I'm sorry, guys. Like, you got blacklisted because people don't trust you. And like I said, if me as a promoter, like if you do that to a big, like if WWE fired you for no showing, like no one's going to book you. Like they don't care if you have that WWE label. Like it's, like if you're going to do that to the WWE or AEW, why would you not do that to a little small time promoter?
Why would we trust you not to do that to us?
Yeah. So that is it for this. Oh, go ahead.
I'll say this is all I'll say about the boys. All I have to do is like just go out there and trash Tony Khan, and Conan will give them bookings in AAA.
No,
as soon as possible. I mean, he already employs sexual assault.
They haven't committed. They have
Alberto Del Rio.
They have not committed near enough crimes for Conan to consider booking them.
Oh, I see. They need a few more sexual assault charges, gun charges,
or they could consider
Conan's good side,
or they could consider like robbing a bank or something, and like they're bookable for Conan.
Mm-hmm.
But so that is it for this week. Thank you everyone for joining us as always. This was actually a really fun episode. I really enjoyed the dog collar match thing, and as always, like I appreciate everyone that stopped by, watched us. This is always a lot of fun for us. I don't know what next week's gonna be. I think we'll probably do more footage. I don't know the dog collar match thing is I just happened to see the FTR Briscos thing. And I'm like, I need to do a dog. We need to do a match on dog show on dog collars. So,
Mhm.
I'll put the thing up whenever we figure out what it is. But thanks for watching as always, and we will catch you next time.